Welcome to SteeleWatching, which is a podcast for Remington Steele fans. My name is Sara, and I am on summer vacation.
Yay!
Yay, okay.
And I'm Eric. The guy next door is mowing. I'm going to hopefully be able to get rid of him one way or the other. Don't ask how.
If he disappears, none of you are witnesses.
That's right. Well, we did say we were going to have that other podcast, How to Commit the Perfect Murder or something like that.
Yeah, that's true. This is the prototype right here.
Yeah, here we go. Yes.
And on that note,
yeah,
we are going to be talking about the season 3 finale, Steele of Approval. And this episode first aired on May 14th, 1985, and it was written by Brad Kern, who is a writer who's popped up before, and directed by your favorite mine, Seymour Robbie. So Seymour's back. This time it's personal or something. And I'll have some thoughts on. Well, I obviously have some thoughts on this episode. I have way too many thoughts, as some people have told us. But yeah, this one is a bit of a. I was struck by some of all the parallels between this one and the season 2 opener, which we'll talk about as we kind of get into it, because there are quite a few. But in terms of the synopsis, I went with the TV guide. It was short and sweet, so I thought, it works. The third season winds up with Laura finding a possible romance in Mexico and Steele dodging a state investigator out to revoke the agency's license. So that kind of sums it up. Yeah. So yeah, we'll get into it unless we have some other thoughts ahead of it. Or do we have anything that we have to say or talk about or announce? Or no, I think we're good. Cool. Nothing. All right. We start with the skyline of LA.
Oh, can we, before we get into that?
Yep.
Can we talk about some things about this episode?
Sure.
Now this is episode 22. According to the production codes, this had a production code of 28. So as we've discussed before, there are production codes which have no corresponding episode, which would seem to indicate that there were either some scripts that were discarded along the way, or they had some gaps in the production codes for some reason. I'm curious as to the explanation for that. It's very, very curious.
Because I mean, some shows have gone over the 22 episode season, but they usually don't go any further than 24, and maybe in an extreme case 26.
Right. But yeah, it's weird that there are so many gaps in this list. I mean, we've got basically 6 unaccounted for codes. So is it a matter of there were scripts assigned to them as kind of contingency scripts, or scripts that they intended to be used, but they ran into some sort of problem along the way, and so they had to come up with new additional scripts? Or was it a matter of they knew some of them were going to be used the next year, but they assigned codes to them so they could get somebody paid? I mean, the fact that we know that this was basically written as the season finale, and it's episode number 28, means that, this one obviously was where it was intended to be. So it raises questions about what happened with the missing episodes. But so I found that curious. And then David White played Larry Tate on the TV series Bewitched. I wanted to throw that in there. I just had to.
Fair enough. But yeah, like I wondered that too, simply because it's clear this episode is a finale. It's actually probably the first finale we've gotten, because the last 2 seasons, the finales that we've gotten haven't really been, they could have been placed anywhere in the season, right? They didn't really feel like, and not just because this one ends on kind of a cliffhanger, but it comes full circle to the issues that were raised in the beginning of the season, which is the first time I think we've seen that really happen. So it is interesting to see, because of course, like you said, there's like a huge gap. So I don't know.
Anyway, enough of my sidetracks.
Maybe someday we'll have an answer. Who knows? But yeah, we open with the skyline of LA, and then it sort of cuts down to an extremely fancy building, which turns out to be it's a hotel, correct?
I think so. But
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not
kind of what I got from
100%
it.
positive. I mean, it's hard to. It could be a very elaborate, very fancy, high-end, but older office building with, high-end lounge. But yeah, it has more the feel of a hotel, but it's not really clearly illustrated or defined.
And I don't think I looked at the front of the building. I couldn't see anything on it that said one way or the other, but it looks like it has a lobby, and it looks like it has, I don't know. I assumed hotel.
Yeah.
But who knows?
But there are some of the older buildings that had extensive, elaborate lobbies. Because
True.
they were built in the 1920s or the 1930s, and they were intended to be impressive edifices, and just people walk in, they're just in awe. And so, I mean, it's entirely possible. Of course, this is Los Angeles, so
yeah,
that's probably less likely than if it were, say, somewhere like back east New York area or something like that.
Yeah. I'm going with hotel.
Sure.
That's what I'm going with. We see a man in a suit with a briefcase who comes in. He walks over to the elevator, gets on the elevator, goes upstairs, walks into a large room where I call this group the Old Rich White Guys Club, because, honestly, I could not tell. I had to keep looking back to figure out who was who, because they all look the same. I'm sorry, but they do. They're all with a couple of differences, mustache here,
Yeah,
it's all
if you didn't know them really, really well, you could probably easily get confused.
Yeah. So you see this group of old guys, and they're all sitting around on couches, presumably waiting for this gentleman. And one of the men says, "On time as always, Mr. Dunford." So Mr. Dunford responds by saying good evening to the man he addresses as Mr. Earhart, and then nods to the other gentlemen who, again, kind of look like nameless versions of these two guys. Mr. Earhart looks over at another man with curly hair who he refers to as Jack and politely asks him to leave. And this is the only younger person in the room. And Jack, who does not look impressed, kind of stalks out in annoyance. And then Mr. Dunford shows them what he's brought. He has mock-ups of posters.
Those are terrible.
I know, I thought that too. They're really bad, aren't they?
Terrible is a compliment to them.
Yeah. I mean, who did these? The Breaker Corporation? Sorry, I had to get that in there. But
they look like they were done at some really low-end desktop publishing template that you get, and it's
yeah, I know. I know it's the 80s, but they still had graphics, like places that did graphics.
Oh yeah. And they had actually expert people to do graphics. And I mean, this is your typical TV political poster, which has absolutely no resemblance to any kind of a real poster.
Yeah, it really does look terrible. I thought that too. I'm like, wow, I don't think they want him to win because of these mock-ups of William Westfield for senator.
Well, actually, we find out that might not be too far off the base later on.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Mr. Earhart is pleased because he's an idiot or he's blind with the posters telling him nicely done. And then another older gentleman asks Mr. Earhart whether he thinks he's being a bit premature. After all, the election is 2 years away. Now, okay, here's the thing. As a Canadian, I agree with that because our election campaigns, like in Canada, from where the writ gets dropped to the actual, voting day, we're talking like a month-ish. Right? Like our writs, our election campaign seasons don't last very long. But you guys in the U.S., holy monkey, you guys have you've always got an election happening of some kind. It's craziness.
Yep.
So I just...
Well, and not only that, but, we have election day, and then we have, we're going to let you vote a week early, and if you don't make it on time, we'll let you vote a week late too. So it's all kind of very, very, very carelessly, and it's not well done. Done.
I found that funny because a number of years back, and I mean this is going back well over a decade. I believe it was the last election that Stephen Harper was in power, who was the prime minister before Justin Trudeau, who is no longer our prime minister because now we've got Mark Carney. But he announced the election, the federal election, and an extended campaign of 70 days or something like that. And people were like, whoa, that's crazy. In the U.S., my American friends are like, oh, that's precious. That's cute. 70 days. What are you guys thinking? So, yeah.
How can you spend millions and millions of dollars on TV ads and radio ads and newspaper ads and hiring Hollywood actors to come out and endorse you, even though they've probably never even heard of you or know anything about you? How can we all do all this in just 70 days?
Exactly. So anyway, they think it might be a bit premature, 2 years away. And Earhart dismisses the man, who he calls JW, saying that it will be here sooner than he thinks. JW acknowledges this, but suggests that they wait until the background check on Westfield is finished before going ahead, adding that they wouldn't want to put their collective reputations behind someone who had some buried bodies laying around. I mean, honestly, are there any politicians out there that don't?
Not anymore. I mean, it used to be you could count on a little bit of discretion from, some people, even maybe when it shouldn't have been. But, well, an example. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He was had been debilitated
he was paralyzed, right?
Yeah, as a young man, polio, I believe it was.
Polio, yeah.
And there were Americans who never knew that he was handicapped. Never. Yeah. Because it was just one of those things you don't talk about it because you just don't. That's respectful.
Also he
because
was able to.
It has nothing to do with his ability to do the job.
He was also able to make sure that he was seen in ways that didn't show him having to stand, or if he had to
right.
You couldn't do that now with the internet.
Oh no,
you could not do that now.
Yeah,
there's no way.
But
right?
but there were media people all over the place who knew about that. His political opponents knew about that, but it was the time where you just don't mention those kinds of things. And I mean, John F. Kennedy, I was going to say he had a zipper on his pants, but his zipper had a zipper.
I was going to say, I don't know that he did. I think that was the problem.
Well,
that he didn't have the
zipper. But I mean, the guy had numerous affairs before and during his presidency, but it wasn't mentioned. It wasn't brought up because even his political opponents, didn't go there.
Yeah. By the way, Canada invented the zipper, so I don't know if that's not relevant to the discussion at all, but I just thought it was kind of interesting.
Maybe that says a whole lot about Canadians, eh?
Well, actually, it's funny that you point that out because, again, and I think things have changed for us too, but in the past, you want to talk about a disability kind of thing. We had a prime minister, Jean Chrétien, who had a stroke in his younger years, and his face one side of his face was paralyzed, so he kind of had a droop, and nobody I think somebody attempted to mock it and received massive backlash.
Ooh, yeah.
Because even even his opponents were like, yeah, no, you don't go there. And it was just kind of like you said, it was sort of accepted that there are things you can go after and things that you stay away from, and but in terms of the background checks, I had a friend recently, well, not recently, probably about 5 years ago, who wanted to be a candidate because our elections work a little differently. You don't directly elect the prime minister. You elect somebody in your riding that represents you, that is either for that party or not.
Actually, technically, we do not elect the president.
No, I know you've got your electoral college, but we've got MPs, right? And so we elect, if I wanted to vote for the NDP, I wouldn't vote directly for the head of the NDP. I would vote for somebody running in my riding to represent the NDP as a member of parliament. And if enough MPs are elected for that party, then they form government, right? So my friend was wanting to be an MP candidate, and basically they had to comb through every bit of social media that she had ever posted, right? They went through the amount of stuff they went through to ensure that she was a candidate that could run. It was insane. And I thought to myself, well, I'm never running for government. They're going to find, and I haven't even posted anything really offensive. I just thought, I don't want them finding my fan fiction. No,
Yeah.
That's not happening.
There's a lot of people that are concerned about privacy.
Yeah.
And that's a big controversy right now. And there's people out there that say, well, if you've got nothing to hide, what are you worried about? It's like, no. You don't understand. Everybody has something, that they don't. It's not that they necessarily want to hide it. It's just that it's not their business. It's not your business over there. It's not your business over there.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the other thing is that there are things in everybody's background that somebody can point to and say, ooh, look at that. Look what you did. Look what you said. And it's like, when I was 18, I might have said some stuff that was kind of stupid, but should that be held against me at 35, 55, 75? Especially if I was, if it was somebody was in college and they were one of those crazy party people in college.
Yeah, exactly.
Half the time they were drunk, the other half they were drunk. They're going to say a lot of stupid things, but that doesn't necessarily represent who they are a few years later.
People grow up, and if it's one of those, it's a very difficult line to walk, because you want to make sure that they're not still behaving that. But so I mean, apparently this guy has passed all the background checks. So far, he's a flippant saint, apparently. so far. Yeah, so far. But Earhart, he's not worried. He tells them from everything he's heard, Westfield is exemplary, and they should put their mouth where their money is and get started on the campaign. JW makes one more plea, saying that they should wait. He looks at the other two men who have not yet spoken. They both vote to wait. Earhart does not look impressed, but JW doesn't pass up the opportunity to rub it in, telling him he looks like he's been outvoted before walking past him. He is a catty B word, like I'm just saying, he's like, the two of them are like scrapping old ladies. Really don't like each other. We then see him walk down into the bar in the hotel, I'm assuming hotel, and join Jack, the man who was dismissed earlier. Mm-hmm. He still looks upset. He tells JW he's getting sick of being dismissed like an errant schoolboy every time there's a decision to be made. They never really say what this club is. Like, they're clearly movers and shakers. They're clearly influential people in some way, shape, or form. But, like, I get the impression that they are an actual organization of some sort, but we don't ever know what.
Well, my impression was that they were some leaders in a local political organization.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would, I guess, make sense.
And so they were trying to find their candidate for this next upcoming election for some position. And so they were kind of in charge. They were the committee to find this person and run them as their candidate. So
okay, that makes sense. I was wondering if they were like Freemasons or something, you know what I mean? But JW assures him he will be in the inner circle soon enough. Jack is now mollified. He wants to know when. JW asks if everything is in motion. Jack says it is, and tells him, well, be of good cheer. They toast. So there's something up. They're doing something that they shouldn't be doing.
They're doing politics.
They're doing politics. That's true, actually. That's a good point. Then we get a scene change. We see a car pull up to a curb outside a house. Inside the car, a man pulls open what looks to be a small instrument case, but in reality has a gun inside. It's a weird... so you know more about guns than I do, because I know nothing. This is like a weird revolver with some kind of... I mean, I'm assuming the sight is targeting, but like... I've never seen a revolver this long before. Do you know anything about like what this is? Because I don't know anything about guns.
It's a big gun.
Okay, cool. I was hoping that you'd have more than that, but all right.
No, it's hard to tell. I mean, it's a revolver.
Yeah, I know that much.
I'm not able to tell a whole lot about it from the shots that we have. Not able to. There's no markings on the side that we can zoom in on that would give us an indication of what it is. But yeah, it's not your standard everyday carry revolver. This
and it's got like there's a sight on it too, so it's obviously he's clearly a professional for sure.
I'm not sure. I would imagine that you can get scopes for revolvers. I'm not sure necessarily it's the best combination to use for this type of thing, but whatever.
Especially since he's being paid to miss. Why does he need the scope? Well, I guess to make sure he misses, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we see Laura comes out of the house speaking to a woman named Mrs. Tucker. She thanks her for her help, and Mrs. Tucker tells Laura she might be biased, but she thinks William Westfield will make an excellent senator. Laura says that he appears to have the credentials for it, and unless something suddenly comes up, he appears to have a shot. She shakes Mrs. Tucker's hand and then walks past the car. We see the man that is in the car. He's got Laura in his sights, dead to rights. But he moves the gun, and he instead shoots out the windows of the car next to her. She dives to the ground, ending up in a mud puddle, which is not the first time she's going to end up in a mud puddle. And the man in the car speeds away, but not before Laura gets at least a brief look at the back of the car. Turns out she didn't get the plate, but she got some of it. Some of the car.
I mean, it's a car. It's big.
It's gray, yeah. Or maybe green. I don't know. Inside the office, we've got Mr. Steele putting on his coat just as the phone buzzes. He picks it up, and it's Mildred telling him that Mr. Earhart is here. Steele is confused. Mildred clarifies, Horton Earhart? Steele says he's delighted the man has a first name, but still doesn't know who he is. Mildred tells him that he hired them to do the background check on William Westfield. Steele wonders who William Westfield is, and Mildred, getting more upset, says that Miss Holt is working on it. Steele, exasperated, tells her to sick him on Miss Holt. Mildred tells him that she isn't there, and Steele, with no other recourse, tells Mildred to bring him in. And this is the first of some of my issues with... Okay, so I'm going to preface this by saying I'm going to have some issues with Laura throughout this episode.
Okay.
And then at the end, I'm going to have some issues with Steele because the two of them are not on their best behavior in this episode. And it makes sense because I mentioned earlier that they're coming full circle. Mm-hmm. We started the season with the Cannes agreement, the big blow up in Cannes, where he lies to her about something pretty damn important and ends up involving her in something and involving the agency in something that looks really bad if it goes poorly, which of course it does. And and Laura puts some boundaries on their relationship, basically says no mixing business and pleasure. That obviously does not work, as we saw through the entire season. And then we get the thaw. And midway, once we get the thaw, we get this period of episodes where, with the exception of Steele and the Chips, which we know wasn't actually supposed to be there, it seems to just be Steele scrambling around, trying to recapture their relationship via a series of ill-timed or, non-executed vacations or dates or what have you. And they just don't seem to make it happen. Like, there's clearly cracks still in the foundation here. Mm-hmm. And in this episode, we see that the cracks are still there because Laura has not... And I know that this is business, not their personal life, but the two, you can't separate the two if you're doing this together. You can't, because they see each other day in and day out, both personally and professionally. So if she's going to go off and be doing her own thing all the time, they're not in sync.
Well,
and even when like she just lets him know, like, I'm doing this background check, here's the details. He's the head. He's going to have to at some point.
Well, later on, Laura makes a reference to that where Steele says something to the effect of, how am I supposed to know what's going on? And she says, I told you, you just weren't paying attention.
True. And that's fair as well. Like, that's a good point because he often does ignore or tune out the boring stuff. I'm not I'm not saying he gets off scot-free here either, and this isn't even my chief complaint. This is a little minor thing. It's more
this is just the build up to the big one.
Yeah, right. It's more what happens when the licensing guy shows up that really ticks me off. But yeah. So Steele is flustered. He's not sure what to do. He tells her to send him in because what else can he do, right?
Sure.
And then he tells her to bring in the file. Mildred says, what file? And Steele tells her the background check on William Westfield, of course. Then looking at Earhart says, that's why you're here, isn't it? So he's put on the charm. Earhart is impressed.
By this time, and especially with what's going on in this episode up to this point of Steele not having a clue what's going on and such, and Steele obviously faking everything here with Earhart.
Sure. Yeah.
Mildred should be starting to ask herself, this is the guy who's supposedly the world's greatest detective.
Well, this isn't even the first time, right? This is a long string of situations where Steele is not in the know and Laura is. Mm-hmm. And then add that to the slip that we know that comes out later on. Yeah, this is, I mean, it's stretching believability here at this point for Mildred, because she's not stupid. She's a very smart woman, right? So I agree with you. And I'm glad that season 4 puts that to bed once and for all, so that we don't end up constantly having Mildred having to cover for something she doesn't know she's covering for, right? Because she never seems to.
And not only that, but she's covering for somebody who's covering.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a good system, right?
No.
So
no.
But yeah, it's enough to impress Earhart anyway, because he tells Steele that a man who's as busy as he is, undoubtedly taking time to involve himself personally in every case, tells him they hired the right agency. Steele says he wouldn't have it any other way, and that's why his good name is on the door. Laying it on a bit thick. Mildred brings in a file, and Steele glances over it, looks at it, and says that he hasn't had a chance to peruse it more thoroughly, but it appears they have turned every page possible on Mr. Westfield, and he's absolutely clean. Yeah.
I'm wondering if that's even the right file. You know, I'm thinking Mildred, well, okay, he wants a file. I don't have a file. You know, just pull something out.
I think it is because he mentions it to Laura, and she seems to agree that I don't know. But either way, yeah, he just sort of he doesn't look at it long enough to be able to say anything definitively, really. No. But Earhart, he seems happy with that, so he doesn't see why Steele can't give his stamp of approval and send him on his way. Steele stupidly says, "Consider it stamped," just as a absolutely filthy Laura comes in to interrupt and says, "Not so fast."
Yeah.
And he then compliments her on her undercover bag lady look. Oof.
Yeah, that's nothing compared to Mildred's, but anyway, okay.
Right? Yeah. I mean, yeah, Laura's definitely not. Mildred's got it over on her for sure.
Yeah.
And she doesn't smell like fish.
Yeah, well, that's true too, probably.
Laura ignores him, saying something's come up that warrants their attention before they stamp anything. Earhart asks what has come up. Laura says she was shot at twice. Earhart says he's sorry to hear that, but what has it got to do with William Westfield? Laura says,
Earhart is so lousy at this. I mean, his responses, his tone, his attitude, his poor acting ability fairly screams, "I'm behind it all. It's my fault. I did it."
Yeah, it's definitely not looking good for him.
Well, and the other thing is, at this point, Laura, she's probably still a bit stressed about it, but it's been probably 20 minutes, 30 minutes. She had to drive back from wherever she was back to the office. She's had time to settle down and relax a little bit. And by this point, shouldn't she be wondering about it? Because, I mean, here the car was right across the street from her.
Yeah.
And close enough that it should have been, even if he missed, it should have been closer than, 7 feet away, because she was at the front of the car when the guy took out the back row windows. She should be kind of scratching her head saying, "Wait a second, something about that. Well, how did he miss?"
I mean, I think she's probably just grateful he did, frankly. Like, I don't know if I would be questioning it. I'd be like, you know what? I'm happy he's a lousy shot, But, yeah, so Laura says, in addition to the fact that they're not working any other cases at the moment, she was interviewing Mr. Westfield's former secretary when it happened. Earhart clearly does not like this news, and he points out that her superior, which she obviously does not love that word, just finished telling him that Westfield was clean. Laura shoots daggers at Steele, who smiles uncomfortably. And she tells Earhart through gritted teeth that recently they discovered a gap in Westfield's history. Earhart asks what sort of gap. She says there's a period in his life that can't be accounted for. Laughing at her, Earhart looks at Steele and says, "It sounds as if she's grasping at straws, doesn't it?" Steele, yeah.
I'm going to say, as bad an actor as Earhart was when Laura first came in, I'm not going to backtrack off that. I'm not going to change my assessment of that. But here he is playing it well. He's playing it as if he doesn't want them to continue on, and his lack of enthusiasm for continuing the investigation after Laura just got shot at. I mean, it's one of those. It's almost what's reverse psychology type thing.
Yeah. He's
I'm not holding this bait out to you. No, this is not bait. It's not bait. No, it's not bait.
Yeah. And it's also that like one of the guys like, oh, the silly woman is yeah.
And so he is at least playing it well in that respect. So yeah.
And Steele, I mean, dude, he didn't have to agree here. He says he could say, well, this is, Laura's one of my best operatives. So she thinks that there's something off. We owe it to check into it. But he kind of just sort of goes along with it. And Laura has to point out that something's not right here, right? She says that she doesn't think anyone would want to kill her for grasping at straws. She looks at him and says, do you?
I think Steele is kind of a victim of his own carelessness because, as we do find out later, Laura had briefed him on the case and what was going on before the shooting. Up to that point, hadn't happened yet, and so he has no clue what's going on, and so he doesn't know what to say or how to respond. Yeah, you're right. Even lacking that information or having ignored that information might be a better, more accurate way to put it. He should at least still, you're right, back up Laura and say, wait a second. If she's got this, we need to look into it. Even if it turns out to be nothing, even if it is related to some other case, the fact that these things happened at this time, let's have a little chance to look at it before we.
And I mean, he could schmooze the client still and do that, right? He could say
that's what he does. He's good at that.
Yeah, your case is so important to us that we wouldn't want to do anything that might really just lay it on thick there. And I mean, hey, they managed to convince what's his face from Vigilance Insurance that it was a good thing that they lost $150,000. It's not like he can't bull crap his way out of something, Yeah. So this nonsense where he's kind of hesitating on agreeing with her is a little bit irritating. He takes Orton by the arm and tells him that he's going to get to the bottom of this and that he won't let him down. He stakes his reputation on it. He's got to stop doing that too, frankly.
Yeah, that's right.
Earhart says, consider it staked before leaving. Once the door is shut, Steele turns to her and says he wishes that she would inform him of the cases he's meant to be working on. Laura insists that she did, but he dozed off in the middle of it, adding that it's not her fault that legwork makes him drowsy. Steele acknowledges that she seems irritated. What the hell, dude? She got shot at.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sorry, but this is monumentally insensitive. She just walked in the door having been I get that at this point them being shot at just means it's Tuesday, but
maybe he's upset that she got shot at
kissing?
And they weren't kissing. Exactly.
Yeah, possibly. How dare they shoot at you while we were not kissing? Yeah.
And if they're going to start shooting at us, I should at least have the chance to kiss you.
He says, you seem irritated. Yeah, I'd be irritated too. I'd be more than irritated. Somebody takes a shot at me?
Yeah. It would tend to unsettle your day. Yes.
It does. He does not handle this well. I think we can both agree there. So yeah, you seem irritated, to which she replies, she gets that way when she gets shot at. Fair. Yeah. He dismisses her and says that he's been looking over the file and she's done some admirable work on this. Again, that's his go-to, right? When she's pissed off at him, just start complimenting her on stuff and hope that it just goes away.
Especially when he has no clue what he's talking about.
Right? Yeah. And he adds that he'd vote for Mr. Westfield based on this information. And Laura agrees that that's how it appears on the surface. But if he's going to stake her agency's reputation on this, they're not closing the books until they're sure that they are sure. He smiles painfully and says, that's what I love about you, Laura. You're so thorough, so tediously thorough. And again, she was shot at, my friend.
And what's wrong with being thorough? I mean, why? Granted, sometimes, you go down rabbit trails that never lead anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so at some point you do have to kind of draw the line and say, okay, this isn't going anywhere. Even though we don't have all the answers, it doesn't look like we're going to get the answers, and it doesn't look like it goes anywhere. So let's backtrack and go, some other direction. But yeah, at this point, I mean, let's see, she's getting shot at.
Yeah, right? I think I would put in a rule that any case that gets you shot at warrants a second look. You know?
Yeah.
Just a thought. So Laura says she got to look at the car that shot at her. Steele asks what it was, and she says, and this is how I would answer this question, a green Thunderbird, or a Cougar, or a Buick, or an Oldsmobile. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things just...
It was definitely a Thunderbird. She could be kind of maybe forgiven for missing that, and the color. The color is kind of this odd metallic, pale green. But there were those little Thunderbirds in the back tail light. So I don't know. I guess maybe that might have been. Of course, she probably wouldn't be looking that closely at it.
Yeah, if I'm diving for my life, I'm just trying to get the hell out of the way. I probably wouldn't.
Yeah, duck and cover,
Yeah. But his comment, his comment is funny afterwards. He says, well, that narrows it down. We'll call Detroit first thing in the morning.
Yeah, right.
Laura adds that there was a bumper sticker with a lightning bolt on it, and Steele asks, and? She says, well, that's it. He's not impressed. And she says, well, she was lying face down in the gutter.
Yeah, right.
And he says, well, couldn't you have lifted your head just a little bit and gotten the license number? Oh, dude.
Well, excuse me. Next time I'll try to do better. I'll ask him to stop. I'll stand in the middle of the street, give him a better target while I'm getting the license plate, just so you can be happy.
Lift your head up, and yeah, she might as well have just handed him a shovel and said, "Here, keep digging." So yeah, she storms out, and Steele kind of stands there and has the nerve to look irritated. Of all, okay. So then we see Laura driving in the Rabbit. In her mirror, she notices that she's being followed, and they're not even trying to be subtle about it.
No.
They're gaining on her fast. She takes a sharp turn, doesn't lose them. Car begins to gain on her again, so she takes another sharp turn, and the other car follows, but being much longer, has trouble, turning around.
Plus, I would say that the driver is not as experienced at evasion driving techniques as Laura is.
Yeah, true. She's using her exuberant driving skills.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah. Eventually, she gets into a lumber yard where she takes a sharp turn around a stack of wood. The car follows. Several pieces of the wood fall onto the car, and then he gets stuck. He gets out of the car holding his head, and I must have missed something when I watched this, because I didn't see the piece of wood fall on him, so it must have.
I think, but I'm looking at the video here, and I think what happened is, as they fell, it surprised him, and he slammed on his brakes, and his head threw forward and hit the windshield or the steering wheel, because, of course, he probably wasn't wearing his seatbelt.
No, probably not.
It definitely wasn't a lap belt that like the new cars have, that is going to stop you from slamming into that. So yeah.
Always wear your seatbelt, kids. Always wear your seatbelt. So he gets out, he's wearing a suit. He looks a bit confused. He turns around to see the Rabbit coming straight at him. And Laura, who is an experienced, exuberant driver, stops just short of hitting him and gets out. And this is where he soils that nice-looking suit. Because I don't know about you, but if that were me, I'd have peed myself. Just saying. So she gets out. She's furious, demanding to know what's going on, but stops mid-sentence when she realizes that she's looking at William Westfield, the man she's been investigated. And I gotta say, we've had a lot of dudes that have been kind of put in Laura's path in the first 3 seasons of this show, that I've commented on being sort of generic dollar store, handsome, quote unquote, handsome carbon cutout Ken dolls, right? I gotta say, I approve of William Westfield, though. Like, thumbs up, 4-star. Like, he's a cutie patootie. I'm
okay. Well, I'm not judging him based on that. I'm just judging him based on his attitude, behavior.
You know what, though? I don't think he doesn't, like, of all the, and we'll get to Tony, but like there is a deep.
Do we have to?
Unfortunately, there is a deep hatred of Tony in the fandom, and you can't really blame them. And even with like Wilson, I mean Wilson, he's a pretty okay. I don't know. I don't have an issue with William Westfield. I think it's because he was never really a threat. Like, I think even Laura realizes that. That she was projecting onto William Westfield all the things that she thought she needed or thought she wanted, and at the end kind of realizes, but
even in that context, I got an issue with it because he's smarmy. He's obviously, he's like a really bad, sleazy Remington Steele in the sense that everything that comes out of his mouth sounds suspiciously like he's trying to hide something. And he's bad at hiding the fact that he's trying to hide something.
See, I didn't get that impression at all.
Oh, no. He's a slimeball. I mean, that's the way he comes across. Now, granted, I will admit, it doesn't turn out he's a slimeball, but when you look at his attitude, the way he talks to her, the double talk, and I've always got an excuse and an explanation for everything, no matter what it is. And I'm following you because, I just want to make sure that what you put in your report isn't negative about me. Well, nothing suspicious about that, right? Right. No, the guy is.
So we've established that
he's not as bad as Tony, but I mean, he's in the same class as Tony.
Oh, I wouldn't even. No. So we've established that Eric is not into William Westfield, but I would get on that plane. Like, I would get on that plane because he comes across to me, I didn't get smug or smarmy at all. I got gently amused because to me, he comes across as, because he's such a straight shooter and because he is such a like normal guy, that he finds it amusing that somebody is so deeply distrustful of him. And amusing to the point where,
and that's your first clue that you can't trust them.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm not saying he's never done anything wrong, but I think that he's not used to having people think that he's the Antichrist, which Laura clearly does. And to be fair, has good reason for it, because at this point she has no reason to think that he's not behind the shot that somebody took at her.
What you consider him being amused at, with somebody's distrusting him, to me, that is a sign of somebody who is nervous and has reason that they shouldn't be distrusted. And they want to make sure that, they're going to be demeaning of your suspicion to try to direct you and guide you and make sure that you're only doing what they want you to do, because you're off on this tangent. And
we got very different interpretations of William Westfield, because like I saw him as like gently flirty and kind of like he's a fun guy. He doesn't take life too seriously. He's kind of surprised at just how deeply she doesn't trust him, and he's trying to clear his name, but he's also kind of interested in her. So he's there. I like him.
He just doesn't come across as sincere in any of that to me. I don't know.
I disagree. I thought he was pretty straightforward, and I would have gotten on the plane. I mean, I'm just saying, like, at least for a weekend, I would have taken him for a spin.
Okay, Scott, put a new one on your freebie.
No, but I'm just saying, in terms of like rivals, I think that this one is one of those that's fairly non-threatening, in the sense that, again, ultimately Laura doesn't choose to go off with him, but I don't know that she was ever really seriously considering it in the first place. Whereas with Tony and stuff like that, they wrote him in such a way that she is, and that's kind of, But yeah, I like William. I'm going to say it. I like William Westfield. No
Fine.
Issues here. So anyway,
you can be wrong. I don't have a problem with you being wrong.
So yeah, she demands to know what's going on. Realizes it's him. And he gives her what I thought was a charming smile and says, "You're not going to put this in my report, are you?" So we switch over to Laura's loft. We see he's sitting on a chair. He's explaining to Laura that as soon as he heard that she had been shot at, he headed straight for the office. He saw her leaving and followed. touches his head gingerly and adds, or he tried to. Laura brings him an ice pack and asks him how he knew about the shooting. He tells him that Mrs. Tucker called him. Laura sits down, asking if he has any idea why somebody doesn't want her to find out about him, or what somebody doesn't want her to find out about him. He tells her that's what he wanted to talk to her about, insisting that he's got nothing to hide. She isn't buying it. She's basically like you. I, on the other hand, would have bought that story, because I think
I got a bridge for you.
Perfectly logical. And I mean, to be fair, I understand why Laura isn't buying it at this point, because she has been shot at. She's investigating him. There's a gap in his history. All of that doesn't look good, right? But from looking at it from his perspective, right, he's also thinking about his own career in the sense that this is the person that has to write the final report that gives him either a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And following
her like a stalker is not going to look suspicious at all after all of this stuff. And that was the most brilliant decision he could make.
Well, I never said he was smart. I think that's kind of why I like him. Pretty and dumb. That's a good combination for me. But anyway, but Scott, I mean,
I need to have a chat with you, buddy.
I don't know. He comes across more like Mr. Steele than any of her other interests, I think, in certain ways. Not in other ways, obviously, because he does have a bit of a cleaner background. But he, in terms of that sort of like twinkle in his eye, effortlessly charming, I don't know. That's what I got from that. So she suggests that they start at the gap in his history. She keeps calling him Mr. Westfield. He pleads with her to call him William. She is not swayed. She points out that he worked for the district attorney 10 years ago. From April through June, nobody seems to recall seeing hide nor hair of him. He's surprised she dug that far back, and he tells her that 10 years ago he was in Mexico.
Again, it's the way he approaches it. 10 years ago. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember now.
Okay. No, to be fair, I don't remember what I did 10 days ago. Okay.
Well, no, it's just the way he pops up. It's almost like you get the impression that he's scrambling to come up with a story. And that's the story that he came up with. It doesn't seem genuine. It doesn't seem legitimate. It seems like I've got to have an excuse. Okay, I'll just say I was in Mexico because, I mean, what are they going to do? Try and track my history down in Mexico? It's not going to happen. So that's a safe lie. Well,
he was in Mexico. He's telling the truth.
Well, he doesn't tell it like he's telling the truth. He tells it like he's telling a lie that he expects to be taken as the truth.
No, see, I took it as again, 10 years ago, you have to kind of like, because if you asked me where I was 10 years ago.
Well, I'm the same way. I mean, I can't.
Right.
I couldn't tell you what I was doing last week necessarily, but
I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to ask myself, okay, what year is it? That was 2015. That was the year before my daughter was born. Okay, I was probably at this. Okay, and then I'm going to be able to say where I was. But that hesitation,
it's just the presentation of it. It's you're going to say, let's see, 10 years ago, I think I was probably doing this. You're going to have some hesitancy in how you say it. You're not going to pop it off as if it just popped into your head as to, where it comes across as, I just thought of a great lie. That's how it comes across.
But he's being truthful. So I win. So he tells her that, like I said, 10 years ago, he was in Mexico. She asks if it was business or pleasure. He tells her that it was definitely not pleasure. He says the case was a residential fire. A building went up in flames and many people lost their lives. He adds that it smelled of arson and there was suspicion that Senator Jefferson was behind it. Laura's interested, clarifying the late Senator Hartford Jefferson. He says yes, saying that he owned the land and that there was talk of putting a freeway through. The residents took it to court, and it could have dragged on for years. Laura realizes that without the houses, the suit became academic. William agrees and says that they got a lead that his son had found out what happened and skipped to Mexico because he found out about his father and the fire. He says he traipsed around Mexico for the better part of 2 months. He says he finally found him in a hospital in Mexico where he had tried to kill himself. Laura asks if he talked to him, but Westfield insists that he was only instructed to find him and then call Earhart. Laura recognizes the name instantly, Horton Earhart, and Westfield says that he was the DA at the time. He tells her he flew to Mexico to take the kid's deposition, but before he could get there, Horton was transferred to a sanitarium in Mexico City and declared legally insane. There were no further leads, so the case fizzled out. Laura wonders why there were no records of that, but Westfield points out that they were talking about implicating a U.S. senator, which isn't the kind of thing you broadcast around until you're pretty sure you can make it stick. I mean, nowadays that would be it would be on TikTok before the news would even get a hand of it, right? Like, yeah. Exactly.
We have unverified reports that somebody said something and they said something else to somebody else, and that's terrible.
Yeah, exactly. There'd be opinion, there'd be sides, there'd be a take on it, there'd be an angle, but yeah, no, he wanted to play it safe because
what was that old saying? You lie to them on page 1 and you issue the retraction and clarification on page 10 or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Laura's still not convinced, though she does admit it seems plausible. He's surprised, asking what does she think he did, rape and pillage? Laura says nothing, and he adds that he doesn't even like Mexican food. Laura gets up, and which actually that proves to be true too, because he keeps trying to take her to a Chinese restaurant. She heads toward the door.
You're grasping for any little
I'm just saying, heads toward the door saying that she's going to have a little talk with Mr. Earhart to see what he remembers. She opens the door to the loft for him to leave and thanks him. He says, again calling Mr. Westfield, he says, William, please, if a man's going to melt a woman's ice cubes, they ought to at least be on first name basis. Come on, that's charming. That's charming.
That is highly suspicious.
No, it's charming.
No, that is I'm trying to manipulate you by being Mr. Charming. Fake Mr. Charming. No, I'm sorry. I am definitely not on this guy's team.
Well, Laura is because he hands her the ice pack and she smiles, more than a little affected by this guy's stare, and same girl. Same. Back at the office, we see Steele at his desk when Mildred comes in, followed by a nerdy-looking man in glasses and a woman with a typewriter, or what looks to be like a small little typewriter thing. Yeah. That would be a pain to have to carry that thing around.
I think it's a dictation machine that does it maybe types out shorthand or something. It's the same type of thing that a court reporter would use.
Yeah.
I think.
Feels like a pain in the butt to carry it around, but
yeah, well, that's the portable version.
Yeah, that's true. Mildred announces they have trouble as the man introduces himself as Oscar Bergman from the State Bureau of Investigative Licensing. Steele leans over and whispers to Mildred to get Miss Holt. Like, at least, and this is where I come back to the season 2 premiere, because we had a very similar situation in season 2, right? Mm-hmm. Steele having issues with, what was it? Was it his passports? Or no, it was something to do with the agency's license. And I'm blanking on it at the moment, but Laura needed to deal with it. She needed to be the one to clear things up, and instead she flits off to Mexico, and she does the same thing here and doesn't take it seriously, and then she gets mad when stuff starts to hit the fan and he's left holding the bag.
Yeah, well, I've got it in my notes a little bit later on where she literally says, you take care of it, I'm going to Mexico.
Yeah.
Or no, she didn't even tell him.
She tells Mildred that. She tells Mildred that. Yeah.
But she has no business letting him handle anything to do with the licensing, because one, it's her agencies, not his. Two,
she wasn't
he
there.
doesn't have a clue as to anything to do with the licensing and past cases prior to his showing up.
Exactly.
So, I mean, she's basically throwing him to the wolves.
And playing with fire. It's her own agency on the line, too.
Yeah, but she's throwing him to the wolves. She knows she's throwing him to the wolves. She doesn't care that she's throwing him to the wolves. And then she gets mad because he gets eaten by a wolf.
That's exactly my issue with her in this episode, because, and I said I was going to have an issue, that's it right there, because I don't have an issue with her trying to figure out what's going on with William Westfield, or her trying to figure out what the gap in that makes sense. Yeah. But once again, they're not communicating. And when this comes up, this should take priority before anything else. This should be the thing that she looks into, or at least has a face-to-face with Bergman about, because Steele cannot handle this on his own.
Yeah,
he cannot.
And granted, the Westfield case still needs to be carried forward. But while she's dealing with the licensing agency and the licensing people, Mildred could be doing a lot of the background work, making phone calls,
Yes.
doing record searches. There's a lot of things that Mildred could be doing to further that case while Laura is taking care of the licensing situation.
Or even if she and Steele had a phone conversation where she said, what case is it that he's looking into? What does he need to know? Here's what you tell him. Right? She does nothing. She just leaves him holding the bag. And it's extremely frustrating because then she gets mad at him when stuff goes wrong. And it's like, what did you expect?
I'm sorry,
what did you
flipped
expect?
through my head. Something just flipped through my head. It's a Home Improvement episode.
Okay.
And I love Home Improvement because, okay, maybe this won't fly too well, but I love the way it shows the sometimes I'll say inconsistency of women, wives, and she insists that Tim tell her what he's feeling about something, and he says, "Well, I'm feeling like this," and then she gets mad at him for what he says. So it's like, well, but you asked me, yeah, but I don't want you to answer me.
To be fair, that show does a good job of also making Tim look like, like it skewers both husbands and wives.
It does
in different ways, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is why I enjoyed it too. I like the show as well because it kind of pokes fun at both sides of that coin, right? But yeah, that is kind of fun. It's like, does this make me look fat? You never say yes. You never say, no, honey, you're beautiful. You're perfect. Like
that's one of those, have you stopped beating your wife questions? There is no good answer. And if you really didn't want to destroy the relationship, you had no business asking that question in the first place.
Right. Like, anyway, so yeah, she yeah. So Bergman tells he says to get this whole she hasn't even shown up yet and I'm already mad at her, but Bergman tells Steele that they have run across some irregularities in their case reports and asks if he can clear them up for them. Steele tries to insist he's too busy, but Oscar says it won't take long, and the woman who's sitting there, she's already typing, right? Bergman suggests they start with the Harper case. Steele doesn't seem to recognize it, and Bergman says according to the publicity it garnered, it was one of his more famous cases. Steele asks him, now, okay, in addition to the issues that I have with Laura for how she handles this, at some point after this, they need to sit down and he needs to do a deep dive.
Oh, it should have been done well before this.
Right? Because and I'm not saying, I still think Laura is primarily at fault for leaving him out, hanging him out to dry. But he needs to do a deep dive on these cases that she worked before he showed up because stuff keeps coming back to bite them in the butt. And he has no idea. He doesn't know anything about these cases, so he can't even reasonably lie about it.
If you're an actor, you got to research the part. You got to know something about the character that you're playing.
Precisely.
And so that would be part of his responsibility as an actor. Of course, he's not supposed to be a trained actor, but still, as a con man, this is the kind of research he would have done.
He should know these at least a little bit about it, but he doesn't, right? So he asks him to give him a year, and Bergman tells him November of 1980, again before he showed up. Steele asks, "Do you have any more recent irregularities?" And Bergman says, "Let's start with Harper for now." Steele tells him to be candid. He never involved himself in a case directly in those early years, as he worked best in an advisory capacity. That's not a great answer because even in an advisory capacity, he would have still had to, advise. So.
Which implies familiarity.
Exactly. It's not going well here. And he knows it. He pretends to be nostalgic, saying, oh, those were the days, but Bergman's not buying it. He tells him that he's going to get all the files and not to go anywhere. And he does the classic trick of leave him in the office and just leave.
Yep.
You gotta respect the old. You gotta respect the classics here, because in the outer office, Mildred hangs up the phone. She's had no luck reaching Laura. She asks what's going on, and he says he wishes he knew. He tells her to go through Laura's files for the Harper case, November 1980, and this at least is a good place to start for him, right? Because he needs something. He's got nothing to go on. He can't answer these questions right now. He's got to get the heck out of Dodge and hope that Mildred can find something or that he can get in touch with Laura so that she can deal with it, right? So he goes back over to Mildred's desk. The printer is printing something because you can hear the, of the dot matrix printer.
Yep. I miss those days.
Oh, yeah, good times. And it's a piece of paper that says Motor Vehicle Files Automobile Rental Agency. Below it says the agency name is Lightning Rent-A-Car and the agency identification is Lightning Bolt. So that's obviously what he's been looking for, some information, or Mildred's been looking for information on the car. And there's an address there. It stops printing. Steele decides this is the thing he's going to look at right now because he can't do anything about Bergman, grabs the paper from the printer and runs out the door. So then, and this is again one of those, it kind of ties back to that second season opener, because didn't they do that to Mildred? Like, leave her there? And just
yeah.
Yeah.
Left her tied up in the hotel room.
Mildred, I can't believe I forgot that. It was Mildred auditing them. My brain sort of blanked on what it was that he dropped the ball. But this is my point, though. Like, Laura should have been handling that audit as well, but she didn't. She, again, took off to Mexico to help her housekeeper, which, again, fair, but Laura, come on. So in the same hotel as from the beginning, Laura approaches Mr. Earhart. He tells her that since she's here empty-handed, he can only assume the file is still incomplete. She sits down, saying that she just needs some corroboration from him. Then she can issue it. He asks her what sort of corroboration, and she asks if it's correct that he sent William Westfield to Mexico and to locate a Scott Jefferson. Earhart simply says, that was 10 years ago, as if it's unimportant. Both of them keep, that's 10 years ago. And, Laura continues undeterred, telling him that Westfield called him after he found, or told him that Westfield called him after he found Scott Jefferson, and he went to Mexico to take his deposition, but by that point, he had already been moved to a sanitarium in Mexico City. Earhart shrugs and says, case closed. Laura's not so sure. She asks if he ever suspected there might be a leak. Earhart isn't sure what she's getting at, or he pretends to not be sure what she's getting at. She points out that he was trying to implicate a U.S. senator, and suddenly his key witness was declared legally insane, making him useless to the case. Earhart admits that, but says the only other person who knew they had found the young man was, Laura finishes for him by saying William Westfield. So obviously Earhart is trying to point Laura at Westfield to keep her from sniffing at him. Earhart asks if she is suggesting that he had Jefferson moved. Laura theorizes that Westfield might have already obtained a deposition from Jefferson before he called him, asking what if he arranged it so Jefferson couldn't legally give his deposition to anyone else. Earhart wonders why would he do something like that. Laura points out that less than 2 months after he got back from Cancun, Westfield moved offices to one of the most prestigious law firms in the country, the same one that handled Senator Hartford Jefferson's legal work. So, yeah, that doesn't look great.
No.
Earhart sees what she's getting at, and so, but again, that was probably one of those things where he was moved specifically so it looked like he had taken a payoff.
Yeah, and that's
right.
Again, that's politics. You set something up so that it gives the appearance of impropriety when there actually was none, and then you make it impossible to investigate whether there was or wasn't.
Yeah.
And so
exactly.
Yeah.
So Laura shrugs and says careers have been built on less, when Earhart basically says, was it a payoff? He admits it's food for thought, but wonders how she would go about finding out if it's true or not. Laura says the only man who could prove it would be Scott Jefferson. She declares she's going to Mexico City to see if she can have a chat with him. Maybe don't tell Earhart that. Come on, Laura.
Yeah, you can't.
Like, I mean, I get that she's pretty convinced at this point that Westfield is the one that is that had her shot at and all this other stuff, because she was hired to look into his background.
But these two people have connections, so you don't show your cards to somebody who might go and tattle on you.
And also, they've had clients hire them that have been the bad guys. So just because he hired them doesn't necessarily mean he's not involved. Right? If I were Laura, I would have said, okay, well, I'm going to continue to follow some leads and I'll get back to you. Right? Yeah. Like, leave it as vague as you can, because otherwise he knows exactly where you're going. That's not great. Earhart protests that trail is 10 years old. Sorry. She insists it's fresher than that, reminding him that she was shot at that morning. As she leaves, she passes J.W. Dunford and Jack. They ask if she's making progress with the Westfield matter, and she smiles, telling them that she's going to let them know in a few days. Jack looks at Dunford and points out that Horton doesn't look happy. He smiles and suggests they cheer him up. Like I said, catty. Yeah. At the Lightning Rent-A-Car, Steele's
I love this. Steele is a dork doing his.
He's such a dork. He's such a dork. He's got the pants up to his neck, right? And calling himself Norman Keys from Vigilance Insurance.
Yeah. I like the red mark from Orc suspenders. But anyway.
I'm convinced though that this stunt here is why Keys comes after them so fiercely later on. Keys, no. Think about it. Keys is such a narcissist. He had to have found out about this and was like, impersonate me, Willie. Oh, yeah, that's my headcanon anyway. But like, because can you imagine him finding out that Steele was pretending to be him to get information for a case?
If he found out, that would definitely set Keys off. But
yeah.
You think he really would find out? I mean, this is...
No, probably not, but it would be funny. It would be funny if this is the whole reason that he hates him so much, right? So the salesman...
there's a fan fiction for somebody.
Exactly.
How Norman Keys found out about this. And
no. The salesman says he only has one Thunderbird, but there aren't any dents, as he checked it out himself. Steele says they have to check it out, adding that they're vigilant, and vigilance is their watchword. Yeah. Take a drink every time Mr. Steele says something is his watchword in these last few episodes. He notices the lightning bolt, begins to inspect the car, opening the door. The salesman asks why he's looking inside and tells him that can't be too that you can't be too vigilant. Yeah, Steele looks in the glove compartment. The salesman says, "Do you think you hit your client's car with the glove compartment?" Steele closes it and stands up. He looks the car over again. In the windshield, he notices a valet ticket for the Hotel Titan. So we do know there is a hotel. I don't know if it's the same place. I can't remember. But he smiles, satisfied, then shakes the man's hand vigorously, telling him that he's been an absolute brick. And it's men like him who keep the insurance rates down before he walks away. Yeah. So then we've got Laura, who comes into the office and calls for Mildred. We hear her groan in the other room, and she goes in to find poor Mildred on the couch. Poor Mildred. Like, they both throw Mildred to the wolves here, and it's really not fair on her, especially since she also doesn't know what's going on, right? She can't really cover for something when she doesn't know what she's covering for. She jumps up and says, "Thank God you're here," and tells Laura he grilled her for hours. Laura asks who, and Mildred says some jerk from the Bureau of Investigative Licensing. She tells him that there were some discrepancies in old case reports. Laura asks where Mr. Steele is, and Mildred, in a rare moment of hero disillusionment, says he bailed on her. Laura, annoyed, says, "That's what I love about Mr. Steele, always here when you need him." What did she want him to do?
Yeah, I mean...
What could he have done?
Would it be inappropriate to point out that she wasn't there either?
I mean, it's not fair. It's not really her fault she wasn't there when the guy walked in the room. Because, like, they're often both out coming and going. But, like, to blame him for taking off, like, that's exactly what he should have done. He can't answer those questions. Even trying would probably put them in more hot water. Because he'd start making, Steele, he'd make stuff up, and pretty soon he'd be talking about his great aunt who was a duchess or something like that, and you'd never know what he'd say. Like, she should know better. She should know better that he did the best thing he could do. He got the heck out of there.
Yeah. But he should have given Mildred some sort of a heads up saying, "Look, I have no clue what's going on."
Yeah.
Give her the story about I was advisory capacity. In the moment, she probably wouldn't question that. Later she would, but in the moment she wouldn't. At least give her a heads up that
something. Yeah.
If you're going to throw somebody under the bus, at least give them a heads up so that they can get in between or try to get in between the wheels.
Exactly. Because he'd be no good with old case files, and frankly, no good with the new ones either.
Well, yeah, that's probably true too.
But yeah, so Laura then Laura. She tells Mildred she'll handle Steele when she gets back. It's not Steele she needs to handle. It's the guy from the Bureau of Investigative Licensing who's not just going to go away.
But it's easier to blame the wrong people for your problems than deal with the problems with the right people, because that way you can say, "It wasn't my fault. You screwed it up."
Yeah. Well, it's frustrating here because this is her everything she's worked for is tied into this. And she should know that expecting Steele to be able to figure it out is not going to work. And she should also know that, like, if the guy's been poking around grilling Mildred, he's not going away. So
No.
it would make more sense for her to at least go down there herself and try and figure out what's going on so that she could at least give Steele and Mildred a place to start looking. If she's going to go to Mexico City to pursue this, and it's fair, she was shot at, she does need to figure out what's going on, at least involving herself to find out what it is they're trying to find out so that she can then give that information to Steele, trust him to handle it then. But instead, she just says, I'll deal with Steele when I get back.
Well, the other thing is that she could go deal with the investigative licensing agency guy and send Steele to Mexico to do the investigation on this.
Yeah, exactly.
Just give him all the background information he needs. Tell him what it is that she needs him to find out.
I don't think he can go to Mexico, though, can he? Because isn't he still wanted?
Except he made that generous contribution to
that's true.
Detective Rios.
It's a iffy.
You may be right. That's maybe one of those gray areas where he might be able to do it and get away with it, or even if there is a warrant out for his arrest, or they may just have simply settled that issue and it's okay.
Yeah.
Don't know. We never actually did get an answer to that.
No, we don't. And we don't know because he obviously went to Mexico the first time around as Remington Steele, which obviously he wasn't Remington Steele when he was there before. So if they had flagged his passport as Steele, he wouldn't be able to go back to Mexico as Steele. He'd have to go under one of his other passports, which could cause issues. So it's dicey to send him, but it's also dicey to just leave him there without anything, right? And that's where I say we come full circle to the season 2 premiere, because she's still not taking this seriously. When Mildred walked into their lives, she was ready to shut them down if she saw a hint of fraud. And now you've got somebody else that's kind of not, I mean, it's not an audit, but they're looking into their past cases.
Well, it is an audit. It's an audit of their records and their reporting.
Yeah. And instead of like taking it seriously and at least finding out what it is they want to know so that she can get Steele to handle it and bullcrap his way through it, she just takes off.
Yeah.
So, we get the Titan Hotel. We see Steele walk in. He sits down in a cushy chair in the lobby, picks up a phone, calls the front desk, and asks to have his car outside in 10 minutes. He gives the number on the valet ticket, and the desk clerk confirms that's the Green Thunderbird. She calls him Mr. Donaldson as well and asks if there would be anything else. Steele tells her he wants a newspaper delivered to his room. This is clever. We see him follow the bellboy up to the room with the newspaper, waits for him to leave, gets out his lockpick kit, and enters the most boring hotel room on the planet where everything is white. Holy cow. Like, I'm sorry, a lobby that fancy schmancy, and your hotel room looks like the set
Hotel
of
6.
It looks like the Golden Girls set. Like, it looks like it's made, honestly, it looks like it's made for a bunch of little old ladies. Everything's white and cream and beige and boring. My God.
But white goes with everything.
Thumbs down to the Hotel Titan. Anyway. So, he starts to look around. Goes in the bedroom where he finds a rumpled bed with some clothes on it. Looks around, doesn't really find anything of significance. He looks inside the bathroom. Goes into the closet where he eventually pulls out a small metal briefcase, sets on the bed and opens it, finding the gun with several attachments. Meanwhile, at the airport, we see Laura has boarded a plane. Flight attendant brings her champagne. She says she didn't order any. I love the size of the seats on these planes. Why? Now they're like, you're lucky if one butt cheek fits on their seat. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, she didn't order any. The flight attendant tells her it's compliments to the gentleman. She looks behind her, and William Westfield is sitting there sipping champagne as well and toasting her. She rolls her eyes and takes it. So we get cut. They're now sitting together. Laura asks him how they happen to be on the same flight to Mexico City. He tries to say coincidence, but she tells him with answers like that, she would never buy a used car from him.
And again, we're back to the guy comes off as being totally dishonest, totally manipulative, totally trying to keep his eye on her because there's something he doesn't want her to find out. No, sorry. It's every little thing that he says and does, and the way he says it and does it just reinforces the idea that this guy is just a slimy scuzzball who couldn't be trusted to fall to the ground if you threw him off a bridge.
Wow. Okay. I agree that he's trying to keep his eye on her, but I don't. I mean, it's obviously not for those reasons. It's because his future is in his hands. She's investigating his past.
I would think if that were the case that you would try to better approach than following somebody and then following them again and then following them again.
Well, I mean, he obviously knows that she doesn't trust him, so there's not really much he can do at this point to gain that trust except stay by her side.
Stop being a stalker!
and make sure that when she's, investigating, he's there to, I don't know. I like him.
How about this? He calls her up and says, look, I know what you're doing. Can I come along with you? Because here's why. But no, it's stalker behavior. I mean,
this is exactly what Steele would do. He would show up on the flight. He'd have the champagne. He sent her a Magnum. I'm just saying, this is Steele's behavior. Well,
but at this point, Steele and Laura have a relationship. And so you can almost live with it. But from somebody that you don't know, that you're investigating, that could be a criminal, and everything he does just screams criminal. I mean, I don't know.
Kind of like sending a Magnum of champagne to her table when she's investigating or trying to keep some jewels safe, and he's trying to steal them, and then.
But she doesn't know at that point that he's to be suspected. So it's just
no. But she's totally charmed. But she goes out with
it's not even the same. So don't even try to make it the same.
Controversy. He begs her once more to call him William. She tells him he's avoiding the question, and he replies that they share one thing in common: his past. He then says that he hopes when this is over, that they will have even more in common. Laura tells him that's a coincidence she wouldn't count on, but she doesn't sound too sure. William says, you didn't say. Did you ever talk to Earhart? Laura, not wanting to give anything away. See, she's smart here. I don't know why she wasn't as smart with Earhart. Like she says, I didn't say. William admits he doesn't understand her, saying he's been perfectly straight with her, telling her everything he knows. Then he finds out that she's headed for Mexico City, which tells him that there's something in his background she's looking for, something to do with Scott Jefferson, he supposes. He has no idea what she's looking for, but he wants to be there when she finds whatever it is she's going to find. He assures her that he has nothing to hide. She smiles, not giving anything away, and says, so you said, Mr. Westfield. So she's still keeping him at a distance.
I don't know.
She's better.
This guy's not smart enough to be a sleazy politician, and he's not smart enough to be an honest politician. So I'm not sure what good he is.
I like him. Back at the Titan Hotel, we see Mr. Donaldson returning to his room, or whatever his name may be. I mean, he's a hitman, so it's probably not his actual name. But
no, probably not.
He returns with a blonde woman. He picks up the paper and opens the door to find Mr. Steele. This is a very James Bond moment. I liked this because this is exactly what happens in one of the Connery films. I think it might have been Dr. No, actually, where the bad guy walks in and he's sitting there with the gun. Mm-hmm. Finds Mr. Steele sitting at the table with his hand in his suit jacket. He demands to know who Steele is, and Steele says he represents a disgruntled client of his, something to do with the Holt situation. Mr. Donaldson looks at the blonde and tells her to take off. And he assumes she's just like arm candy, but it turns out, no, she's his wife.
Yeah. Not only that, but she's just as deadly as he is.
Yeah, exactly. She asks, what about the coat he bought her? And he tells her it's in the, gestures to the bedroom and don't take all day. So she goes into the bedroom and Steele pulls out the gun just as Donaldson asks what Steele wants. He tells him that he missed his target and his client is very unhappy and wants his money back, so he's here to collect. Donaldson is outraged. He says, that was the deal. Steele, a little surprised, says that's not how his client sees it. Donaldson continues saying that he told Prince he didn't like the setup. He says he isn't paid to miss and doesn't care how much he gets. He has a reputation to maintain.
And yet he still took the job.
Exactly. Steele removes his glasses and says, you honestly expect me to believe that Prince hired you intentionally to intentionally miss Laura Holt? Donaldson says that's what he wanted and that's what he got. He's not going to weasel out now. Steele stands up and says it's a fascinating story And then he says they're going to go to the police when the door to the bedroom opens and the blonde appears with a gun.
Yeah.
Dive behind the couch as she gets off a few shots, and eventually we see the top of Donaldson's head behind the couch as Steele urges him to get down. Donaldson yells for her not to shoot, and Steele puts a gun to his head, allowing him to raise it. He asks who she is, as Donaldson tells him that's his wife. Steele was not expecting that. The family that slays together stays together, I guess, right?
Yep.
Like that's love.
Yes.
He tells Helen she can do one of two things. She can either drop the gun or it's an instant divorce. And she hesitates.
I love this.
Hesitates.
I know. And his response is, what's taking you so long?
Yeah,
that
right?
reminds me so much of a Jack Benny bit.
That kills me.
Jack Benny had built a reputation as a guy who was very, very stingy. And this was a running gag for years about this character that Jack Benny portrayed. And there's an episode where he's borrowed Ronald Colman's Oscar, because I don't remember the reason, but he borrowed Roger Colman's Oscar, and he's walking home with it. And some guy comes up to him behind him, sticks a gun and says, "Your money or your life?" And then there's this long pause. And the guy says, "Listen, Betty, didn't you hear me? I said your money or your life." And Benny's instant response is, "I'm thinking it over."
Yeah, this is like, that moment where you expect she's just going to put it down, but she's like, no.
Yeah,
and then
really.
he's like, "What's taking you so long?" Eventually she drops the gun. I don't know if their marriage will survive that, but Steele stands up with Donaldson. He's surprised at a husband and wife hit team, adding that the family that slays together stays together. Steele comes back into the office. He begins to ask Mildred for a favor, but she demands to know where he was. Poor Mildred. She is like out of F's to give here. Like, she's really mad, right? Saying she may be out of line, and if so, she has an IRS pension coming. But when he left her with that bureau pip, she felt like a discarded piñata, and he was batting her all over the place. Good for you, Mildred. Good for you. Because, and I realized that particular case, Steele had to go. He had to take off because he really didn't have any other choice. But this is, I think, where she's starting to see the cracks, right? I don't appreciate how you treated me. I don't appreciate being left to deal with this. I'm not capable of handling this guy, and I got treated badly. What the heck? And obviously the anger, I think maybe some of that should be directed at Laura, but she doesn't know that. So he's kind of taken the
But
the
from her
brunt of it here.
perspective, he's in charge of the agency.
Yeah.
And so he's responsible for everything, like the captain of the ship, you're responsible for everything that happens. So in her mind, it makes sense to hold him responsible because, after all, either he gave Laura instructions, which left Mildred hanging out, holding the bag, or he's got no control over his employees, and so Laura left her holding the bag. And either one is not a good look for him as the boss.
Well, Mildred takes hour-long lunches whenever she pleases, and Laura's dating the boss sometimes. So, I mean, really, there's not a lot of structure here to begin with, but you're right. And she doesn't know that some of her anger should be placed at Laura's door because she's been kept out of that loop. And really, at this point, she shouldn't have been. So there's a lot going on here. Steele apologizes and says it was for a worthy cause. Mildred says, "Well, I should hope so," adding that Mr. Bergman called and requested he come to the office to answer some questions, and he wasn't asking. Steele suggests Miss Holt go, and Mildred says she's not here. Steele asks, where is she? And she says Mexico City. Steele's anger is justified here. Right? He's justified in being angry that this is all happening, and she's taken off again.
Yeah.
She left him holding the bag before. Mildred ended up tied to a bed.
Yeah, but, in this case, it's a little bit like the pot calling the kettle black because Laura left him to hold the bag. Well, he left Mildred to hold the bag. So what's the difference?
The difference is there's not much he could do.
Well, I understand that.
Right?
But when you throw somebody under the bus, it doesn't really matter if he didn't give Mildred any more of a heads up than Laura gave him.
No, in terms of how Mildred's treated, no. But I'm just saying, in general, for him at this point, he's angry that Laura's taken off because her agency's in jeopardy and she's not sticking around to protect it. She's leaving that to him.
Oh, yeah,
And,
okay.
he's what can he do? He can't. And at least he tries. He goes to the meeting. He doesn't take off and go somewhere else like he could theoretically
that's
do.
true.
He goes to the meeting to try to fix it, but obviously, and here's the thing: there's nothing he could have done anyway, right? The fix was in from the get-go. They were going to lose that license because they were paid to, but at least he's trying. Like, if Laura had been there, then she would have maybe gotten to see what was going on behind the scenes. Instead, she's off. And to be fair, it's also a lead that both of them end up interconnecting, but she should have been there to see that somebody's after her license, and she really, really should be keeping an eye on this, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, and he says, what the bloody hell's she doing there? Mildred says, beats me. And that's where he gets enraged. He says he's out there sidestepping bullets, trying to save her agency. Mildred catches that line and says, her agency?
Yeah. If Mildred didn't have a clue before, this should be the proverbial straw that breaks the camel's back.
Right.
Because for all the times that he's deferred to Laura, all the times that Laura has made the decisions, all the times that he hasn't had a clue about what's going on. I mean, all this evidence just piling up. You can only ignore it for so long. And then this should be the capper to her, making her realize that there's something about this. Yeah, okay, he's the boss, but she's in charge. But add all that, or even add that statement to all of this, and his comment about trying to save her agency, it should, some bells should be going off in her head. And we lost you again.
We got so close.
So close.
We were doing
and
so
yet
well.
So far.
Yeah, no, I agree with you though. And they even did, he has told her. They had that conversation in season 2.
Well, that is right? That's true. That is true.
He did tell her. He didn't come right out and say I'm a con man, but he said if I'm anything more than a figurehead, it's because of her.
Yeah.
Right? So
Mildred's got all the pieces. She's just got to put them all together to solve the puzzle.
Yeah. Exactly. So she's and she he fobs it off as a figure of speech, which that's not a figure of speech as far as I'm concerned, but hey. Mildred tells him to hurry. He doesn't want to be late. He tells her that he first would like her to get on the computer and get it to spit out everything she can on a Jack Prince. Mildred asks, what about the licensing board? And Steele tells her it's merely a formality. He'll straighten everything out. Mildred says, okay, sits down at the computer. Right? So he is going. He knows he probably can't get out of that, so he's going to try at least. Upon arrival in Mexico, William comments that she's being awfully quiet and asks if she's run out of questions for him to avoid. Laura looks around and asks him to excuse her as she uses the ladies' room. He says, by all means. Laura goes into the bathroom. We see her climb out the window saying gracias to someone. She pulls up to the sanitarium in a taxi, but no sooner has she paid the cabbie does she see Westfield is at the front door telling her that Jefferson is gone. And yeah, this does look hella suspicious, right? She asks,
oh yeah,
where? And he tells her that he was transferred to LA the day before. Laura says, you won't be heartbroken if I don't believe you. He tells her Senor Gomez has the file and asks how her Spanish is. She says, better than my German, which so is mine, but all I can say in Spanish is yo quiero una cerveza, por favor, right? So, and that's I'd like a beer, please. Like, that's the best I can do. That's what I learned from my trip to Venezuela when I was 17 years old, and there is no drinking age. So
that's the only line you needed to know.
Literally the only thing I needed to know. The only thing I remember too. So, better than
we know
German.
about how your trip to Venezuela went.
Yep. So inside we see her trying to ask about Scott Jefferson in Spanish. Not doing too well. Senor Gomez tells her that he was transferred to LA and hands her a file. She looks at it, notes that the order was signed by a Dr. Herbert Sanderly. She states that after 10 years, he is suddenly transferred and that she's getting tired of all these coincidences. She asks if she can use the phone and picks it up to start dialing. She gets to the airport. In broken Spanish, tries to get a flight to LA. William asks if she wants to know when the next flight to LA is. Laura says, sí, and he takes the phone asking in fluent Spanish about the next flight. If he spent 2 months there, I mean, I'm not saying that automatically would make him fluent, but he probably has. Yeah, this is not surprising that he could speak Spanish.
Well, yeah,
I don't know why
he probably, if he wasn't raised in a Spanish neighborhood, he studied Spanish somewhere.
I don't know why Laura doesn't have better Spanish. She had a Spanish housekeeper who barely spoke any English.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, how would you communicate otherwise? Yeah, anyway. So he asked when the next flight is, and then he tells her not until the next morning, about to hang up. Laura doesn't believe him, so she grabs the phone, asking for someone who speaks English. The person on the other hand obviously does, so she proceeds to ask the same question he just asked. Pause. She hangs up the phone in defeat, saying gracias, mucho gracias. William then tells her that she probably won't believe him, but he knows of a great little Chinese restaurant near there. In the small office, we can see Bergman and his typist waiting for Mr. Steele, looking at the clock. Eventually, Steele comes through the door apologizing and saying that something came up, and in this business, one can scarcely plan for anything. Bergman isn't buying it. He says, "Is that a fact?" with heavy sarcasm. And Steele says it is, not catching the sarcasm, saying sometimes things are intolerable. He sits down and asks if they can scurry this thing along as he's rather pressed for time. The only criticism I have of Steele here, and again, this would not have made a difference one way or the other because this has already been fixed, but he could be kissing a little bit more ass considering what's at stake.
Yeah.
Again, it wouldn't have made a difference, but hey,
he didn't
doesn't
know
hurt
that.
to try.
And if you're trying to mollify somebody, you don't do it by being offensive or dismissive or aggressive toward them. You kind of have to play
So
nice.
Bergman, unimpressed, says he has good news for you. Steele, not sure if he should be happy. Says,
Really?
And Bergman adds that he's going to have all the time in the world. As of right now, the state licensing board is suspending the agency's license pending further notice. He tells them that any cases they are currently working on must be dropped or they will face criminal charges. He leans over and tells them rather gleefully they are out of business. Yikes.
Yeah, he's enjoying that a little bit too much.
Yeah, which you'd think might raise a bit of a red flag for Steele or, Laura if they were communicating. But meanwhile, Laura is attempting to call the agency from Mexico. She gets a hold of Mildred, who is glad to hear from her, although she tells Laura that she's not going to be glad she called. Laura asks her to speak up, and Mildred says it's terrible, just terrible. They've taken her license away. Laura is shocked, although really, you can't really be shocked when you left others to deal with this. And she says, who did? And Mildred tells her the licensing bum she told her about. As she says this, a door opens, and we can see people carrying the filing cabinets out of the office. Would they be able to confiscate would that be?
That was something I had in my notes. I don't think.
Like, shutting them down is one thing, but unless they're under a criminal investigation, I can't imagine that they would have any entitlement to their files.
Yeah. Presumably, it has to do with discrepancy in reporting and other things, which is probably not a criminal offense and probably wouldn't give them cause to go in and seize their files.
Yeah, like that one struck me.
If they're out of business, that doesn't mean that they give up their rights. And those are company records. They belong to the company.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So it's just, made for TV.
Yeah, well, yeah. Laura asks where Mr. Steele is. Mildred doesn't know. She says she hasn't seen him since he went to the hearing to straighten everything out. At that moment, Bergman approaches Mildred. Laura starts to say, are you telling me that Mr. Steele, but Mildred cuts her off, saying that she can't talk anymore because they want to padlock the office. Again,
No.
What? They're leasing the office.
Yeah, it's their office. And besides which, they just took all the files out. What's the point in locking?
Right? There's nothing to, Laura looks shocked as she hangs up the phone. William Westfield approaches her and tells her that he's got 2 rooms booked. She slams the phone down and she storms away, right? Westfield follows her, trying to find out what's wrong. Laura leaves the hotel and exclaims that she leaves the office for less than 24 hours and all hell breaks loose. She knew this was happening before she left.
Yeah. And she knew that the guy from the State Bureau of Investigation's licensing department was poking around in the agency's records. She blew them off. She let them to Steele, who she knew was ill-equipped to handle it.
Yeah.
How is this his fault? Plus, he is actively trying to help her solve the case.
Yeah, he's doing his best. He's doing all he can.
And Laura isn't even helping him. She ran off to Mexico without telling him, without saying anything. She hasn't told him anything relevant about the case other than I was shot at and there's a gap.
Yeah, that was the last time they spoke. Literally, it was the last time they spoke. And
because
granted,
she refuses to keep him in the loop.
I mean, granted, he was insensitive about her being shot at, but still a couple of phone calls back to say, this is what I found out. This is what I'm looking into. This is who I'm suspecting. Any of that. Nothing's happened.
Yeah.
And this is a common pattern that has, and Laura keeps saying, we don't work on things by ourselves. And yes, it is her agency. And yes, she can pursue that and make that the rule for him, but not for her. At the same time, it's not working.
Yeah.
It's clearly not working because now she's lost her license because they're not communicating, and I'm gonna say that basically this is 95% Laura's fault because she is basically acting as if the freeze is back on, or worse, she's deliberately trying to avoid letting him be involved in the case while making him responsible for handling things that he shouldn't be handling, and then blaming him for the problems that result. Yeah, so, pretty much.
I'm not going to say that he's not without some share of the blame, but it all pretty much stems from Laura's refusing to involve him, refusing to communicate with him, trying to freeze him out of the case. And as happens with so many people, he has all the responsibility with none of the authority. And also without any of the knowledge because she's not talking to him and so
it's very frustrating, especially since she's now blaming him, right? She says, oh, that man, what could I possibly have been thinking about all this time? Why have I stuck it out for so long? I'm kidding myself.
Why is she talking to him about this?
Well, I don't think she is. I think she's talking to herself.
Well,
Westfield just happens to be there.
But she knows he's there. She knows he's
honestly,
overhearing
I think she's forgotten he's there. She's just
you think so?
She's so mad. She's not even looking at him. She's just like, she's pacing, she's ranting, she's kind of like blocked. I even had in my notes, Laura's in her own world, right? She's kind of like forgotten he exists at the moment. And what's frustrating is that she had a right to be angry and she had a right to be angry with the whole Duke of Rutherford nonsense. Mm-hmm. She had a right to be angry. Like there's so many points in this season where he doesn't talk to her. He doesn't communicate to her. He doesn't let her in when he should. But this is on her. And to blame him for this, like this is her mess that she didn't stick around to clean up, right?
Yeah. I do think she knows that Westfield is there because when she says after, why have I stuck it out for so long? Boy, have I been kidding myself. He asks her directly, who are we talking about?
So, she doesn't answer him. She just kind of like, she just keeps talking to her. She says the agency means everything. And she questions
how can I let him do this? And he says, your boss. And she says, ha, as in, ha, my boss. So I maybe at the very, very beginning of her rant, she might have not realized he was there, but certainly partway through, she knew he was there and she kept the rant going. And it's something that she has no business talking to him about, no business cluing him in on, unless she's willing to admit that the entire last 3 years with this guy standing up here proclaiming to be Remington Steele has been a fraud. And in fact, before that, when he wasn't even there, that Remington Steele was a fraud. I mean,
well, to be fair, she hasn't actually said anything that indicates that at all, right? When she said that that man, what could I possibly have been thinking about all this time? Why have I stuck it out for so long? I'm kidding myself. This sounds like a pissed off employee right now, right? Yeah, and then she says it means everything to her, right? And then that's when Westfield guesses that she means Steele and asks, are we talking about more than just a professional relationship? Because for all he knows, they've just had a breakup or a fight.
Well, yeah, but I think it's one of those things that it's enough information that she shouldn't be sharing that, you know, it's like that little fleck of something that's kind of starting to come up and you start picking at it and eventually you wind up peeling all the paint off of something. And you wouldn't have done that except for that one little fleck of corner that kind of caught your attention. And I think this is potentially.
But at the same time, when you've lost everything, you're probably not going to be great with reining in your emotions.
Well, okay. True.
Now, again, I don't agree with who she's directing the blame at, but she's not in the frame of mind okay. And then Steele, she says, Westfield guesses she means Mr. Steele. And he asks, I like this, okay? He asks if it's more than a professional relationship, and Laura breaks the fourth wall here. I'm convinced she's talking directly to the audience because she says, oh, who knows? 1 minute there is, one there isn't. Up and down, up and down. You need a bloody elevator to keep track of all the ups and downs. And those of us watching are like, yeah, maybe pick a floor. Just pick a floor. Then she sighs in frustration and says, I'm sorry about this, William. He says, I'm not. That's the first time you've called me William. Laura tells him that she shouldn't be laying all of this on him. So she is acknowledging that she's had a bit of a breakdown and this is not something that she should be talking about, right? He says, it's okay, adding that he likes to listen. He tells her that he's never met the man, but everything he's heard makes him envious. He's naturally dashing, adventurous, outgoing. And then Laura adds irresponsible, devious, and enigmatic. And honestly, these are all facets of her personality too, both good and bad.
Well, yeah.
Right?
Okay,
I think the audience and sometimes the writers forget that she's as much of a con artist as he is.
Yeah.
She has that wild streak in her. She has that ability to go off the rails and to do something crazy. She is dashing, adventurous, and outgoing. She's also sometimes, like in this episode, irresponsible, right? She can be devious, enigmatic. Like these are...
Yep.
Yeah. William contrasts this by saying, well, he's quiet and he's a quiet, introverted guy who happens to believe in the good old-fashioned Protestant work ethic.
And I had a revelation.
Oh?
He's Wilson.
Yeah.
He's Wilson 1.0 or Wilson 2.0.
Where have you been? I've been here the whole time.
Oh, poo on you.
That's why I like him and why she seems to like him.
Why she shouldn't like him.
Well, she realizes that at the end. It doesn't take long for that shine to rub off because she realizes that's not what she wants, right? But at this moment, right? At this moment where I don't agree that it's fair, but she's placing all the blame on Steele, who is, in her mind, as she was saying, irresponsible and feckless and all these things. This guy is standing there being as stable as they come. That looks great to her at this right now. Right now, it looks great to her. It's not going to look great to her when she realizes that that's not what she wants. But at the moment...
Yeah, when you want Tutti Frutti ice cream, vanilla isn't going to cut it.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing wrong with vanilla. I love vanilla. I don't like Tutti Frutti. But
fan of vanilla too.
But, if you got your taste buds set on Tutti Frutti, it's like... Sometimes my wife will double cross me on dinners. She'll say, well, I'm planning this for dinner. And, I'll be thinking about it all day. And my taste buds are all set, ready to go. And then she says, well, I didn't have something or I didn't have time. So, we're just going to have this. No.
And Laura, she looks positively delighted to hear this. It's not surprising. She laughs and he asks what's so funny. She says that's how she's always been described. I don't think it is,
at least for the last few years, maybe.
Right? Yeah, because that's definitely not how Wilson described her, right?
Yeah, that's not Acapulco Laura.
Yeah, wild, uninhibited, exuberant driver. So that's
passionate. Yeah.
I think though that's part of her. Part of the issue is that, and she said this in the previous episode, he's the parts of herself that she has to guard against, right? So she's conveniently forgetting that those parts of her are part of her. She's buried those parts of her in the past. That's not who I am anymore.
Yeah, she's suppressing them. They're still there. Right? She's just suppressed them.
They're still there because she took off to Mexico without dealing with her crap.
Yeah.
That's 100% irresponsible, reckless behavior. That's Acapulco.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because somebody who's steadfast and a workaholic and all these other things that she's so often accused of being would stay behind to get that dealt with, not take off and say, I'll figure it out later. Right? So, that's... Yeah. Anyway, he says it's a match made in heaven, touches her arm. He notes that she's shivering. She hadn't realized it. it's Mexico, so I don't. Okay, whatever.
Well,
I've been to Mexico.
It's night.
I don't know. This is the Canadian in me, but if it's not like -5, it's not cold. Like,
well,
like
I don't disagree with you in theory, but years ago, when we were living in Oregon, just before we moved back to Alaska, my wife and I took our kids down to Southern California to take them to see Disneyland. We figured that was probably going to be the only chance that they ever had to see Disneyland as kids. And we were standing around waiting for my sister to come and get us into the park. She worked for Disney Corporation. She didn't work for the park, but she worked at the park because her office was there, and her business was procurement for all the Disney amusements facilities around the world. And so we're sitting there, or we're standing there waiting to get in, and it's like 70 degrees American. That's like 21 degrees Canadian. And we are just dying of heat stroke. And everybody around us is wearing sweaters and jackets. And it's like, you people are nuts. It is not cold.
And that's the thing, like every winter or spring or whatnot, when the temperatures change, you've always got like that one guy that shows up to the school pickup, even though it's -20, and he's like in flip-flops and shorts. Right? Yeah. There's that guy. There's always that guy. I'm that guy sometimes, but most of the time my husband's that guy. And that's how I've been joking. Like, he just passed his citizenship test, but he's already a Canadian because he's that guy. Right? So, like, I don't know. Anyway, but I guess they live in LA and they're not used to the cold. So
but
whatever.
See, they're in Mexico. That's a desert.
Yeah.
At night, you could be 100 degrees during the day, and at night the temperature will drop down to the mid 40s. So it can be cold at night. Yeah. Even though it's in the middle of the desert. On the other hand, it could be over 100 degrees during the day and still be over 100 degrees at night. So you never know.
I don't think she's cold. I think she just wants to snuggle with William Westfield. And I mean...
Please. Oh, that is...
Sorry, I'm projecting.
Somebody got any Pepto-Bismol? My stomach just
somebody
took a turn.
Is me. He gives her his coat. She smiles and corrects him with Laura. And she takes his arm and they walk back to the hotel. Inside the gym, sorry. This is a weird gym because it seems to be like a pool, but then there's a track above it.
Yeah, I've seen things like this in other television shows.
Yeah, must have been a thing.
And it is weird.
A trend. Yeah, I just think it's weird to want to go running in because indoor pools are humid. There's a lot of humidity in an indoor pool because the chlorine and the balances and whatever. Like, that couldn't have been fun to run in. I don't know why you'd want to run around a track. Plus, when people are swimming, I don't know. It just seems weird.
Yeah. I mean, the temperatures in those places, the air temperatures are pretty warm.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So, it's like it's humid. It's like thick humidity, right? We see Jack Prince running around the track, and Steele catches up to him and says, "There's nothing like a morning jog to stimulate the senses." Prince asks if he knows Steele, but Steele says he knows him, saying his name and adding that he's a self-made millionaire with a string of shopping centers, oil wells, and extraordinary political connections. Prince asks him what business he's in, and Steele says, he's retired. Prince isn't buying it, but Steele asks, for about 14 hours now. He tells Prince his name, and Prince says, he's awfully chipper, considering that his stripes had just been taken away. And Steele comments that good news travels fast. Prince suggests they cut the bull, and Steele agrees. He says that his hired gunman and his enchanted wife, he had a little soiree yesterday. Prince asks what the hell he's talking about, and Steele turns and accuses Prince of hiring them to shoot at Laura. Prince calls him crazy. I keep saying Prince, and I'm like picturing like Raspberry Beret, like the artist formerly known as Prince. Anyway.
Yeah.
Not the artist formerly known as Prince, but he calls him crazy and turns to leave, but Steele grabs him, saying, "Not so fast." When he asks what he's doing, Steele says he's making a citizen's arrest. And I got to ask, is that actually a thing? I've heard this in movies and TV shows. It's not, like, as far as I know, that doesn't exist in Canada, but how does one do that in the US? Like, how do you
say I'm arresting you?
And people have to go? Like, what?
Well, they don't. I mean, they can. It could turn into a fight, but
okay.
But yeah, I mean, citizen's arrest is a real thing. Now, that doesn't mean that that person is the one filing the charges necessarily. Arrest simply means, if I remember the legal definition of it, simply means that you're not being allowed to move away. You're being kept there. So yeah,
Okay.
I mean, people can do that. It's not very commonly done. People who try that are often called vigilantes, vigilante justice. But it is a thing. It's just not commonly done. And admittedly, sometimes it is misused. But
I just Googled it because I'm wrong. Apparently in Canada, citizens can make a citizen's arrest under specific circumstances defined in the criminal code. A citizen can arrest someone they find committing an indictable or hybrid offense, or if they have reasonable grounds to believe someone has committed such an offense and is escaping. Additionally, owners or those in lawful possession of property can arrest someone committing an offense related to that property. So any citizen can make, it says if a person's found, I already said that, for offenses against property, owners or those in lawful possession of the property can make an arrest at that time the offense is committed or within a reasonable time afterward if it's not feasible for a peace officer to make the arrest. Citizen making an arrest must immediately deliver the person to a peace officer. Force can be used, but it must be reasonable in circumstances, meaning it can't be excessive. Using excessive force or arresting the wrong person can lead to legal consequences. When in doubt, if there's any doubt or hesitation, call the police. So I didn't know you could actually do that here. That's hilarious because I don't think I've ever seen anybody ever do that. But
well, that last bit about if in doubt, call the police. That's one of the reasons why somebody might make a citizen's arrest is because there's that old saying, the police minutes away when you need them there in seconds.
Hours
in some
away
cases, in some cases, it's like they'll never show up, literally.
Yeah,
because,
that's fair.
Well, in a lot of places, they'll just send you paperwork. Yeah, you've been a victim of a crime. Here, fill out this paperwork. They won't show up. It's just not important enough to them. Let me back off on that a little bit. It would be important to most of the rank and file officers, I think.
Right.
But it's not the kind of thing where the politicians in charge of police departments have determined that this is not a good use of our resources. So we're not going to,
Right.
So we're going to instruct the police officers not to worry about these kinds of crimes.
Yeah. Anyway, he shoves Jack up against a rail and tells him that he hired someone to take a shot at Laura and miss, and he wants to know why. And then we cut to inside the sanitarium. We see Laura dressed as a nurse tying down William Westfield to a wheelchair.
Can we?
We've done this scene before.
Yeah. Can we come up with something more original, please?
I know, right? Like we've done this scene before.
And it doesn't work as well this time.
I mean, it gets them in, but the nurse doesn't. Yeah, you're right. The nurse doesn't buy it. But I think she's also been instructed to call anybody that attempts to talk to Jefferson anyway. Mm-hmm. So it wouldn't matter how good the act was, right?
Yeah, it's just that you shouldn't go to the same well twice.
Yeah, Westfield says this is ridiculous, and Laura tells him she could do it alone. She would. Maybe call Steele at this. Anyway.
Yeah, and have Murphy fly in to do the honors with Steele.
Murphy, calls him up like, "Hey, Murphy, I know you're in Denver, but I need somebody to growl really convincingly."
Well,
you're the first person I thought of.
No. Murphy was the.
Oh no, sorry, yeah, you're right. He was the one pushing the wheelchair. It was Steele.
But he did such a great job with it, and Steele did such a great job as the. Lunatic. Yeah. Go to the experts.
Yeah.
Do you need to break into a hospital?
Yeah.
Do you need somebody to be a fake patient and a fake doctor?
Call Remington Steele.
That's right.
Yeah, but Westfield protests, saying he wants to be there when she questions Jefferson. She tells him that he might not like what Jefferson says. Westfield is surprised that she's still suspicious. Oh, you sweet summer child. Like, this is how you know he is really an innocent baby, because, like, he doesn't seem to know just how long Laura can remain A, suspicious, and B, stubborn. Like it's sweet that he thinks that, like, this is all it's going to take. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, or it's the act of somebody who still doesn't want you to find out that they've got skeletons in their closets.
Innocent, and he is, like, anyway.
Act like it.
She says she is and begins to push him in a chair, saying that he has the easy part. She tells him all he has to do is growl. They get to the counter. Westfield's head is sort of lolling to the side. The head nurse asks what his problem is, and Laura says she doesn't know. She just delivers them. The nurse asks who the admitting physician is, and Laura tells him it's Dr. Herbert Sanderly, adding that he wants him with the other patient he just admitted. So they're obviously back in LA now, but it's kind of a weird transition because usually, like, when they fly somewhere, you see like a shot of the plane. We didn't get that.
No.
And it's weird that she'd be back in LA and not contact the office at all, or even, anyway. The head nurse says, Johnson. Laura corrects her, saying, the guy who came in yesterday from Mexico. The head nurse replies, yeah, Johnson. She adds that he's in the lock ward. Laura's patient doesn't look like he needs anything that severe. Laura tells her ours is not the reason why, and then he just said to put him with Johnson. The nurse says she better double check. Before she can make that call, Laura has nudged Westfield to start growling, which he does. And Laura uses this as an excuse to say that the doctor knows where he wants him. The nurse presses a button and the two orderlies come in. She tells them to take him up to the lock ward. As they do, she picks up the phone and places a call asking for Dr. Sanderly. So I get the impression that the nurse would have done that no matter what, because this is a patient they don't want anybody getting to.
Yeah.
Right? So she's probably like erring on the side of caution here. We see the orderly lead them into a room. Laura tells him that he better get some Thorazine and that when the straps come off, he will go wild. He lets out another growl for good measure as the orderly leaves. Laura undoes the straps and tells William to watch the door. She sits next to Jefferson. She obviously trusts him enough here, because if she really thought that he was responsible at this point for having her shot at, she wouldn't be allowing him to be in the room with her when she questions Jefferson. I don't think.
Other than the fact that
they're in a lock ward for supposedly violent patients. If something happens to her, they can just be blamed on, oh, he was crazy, right?
But I think she's making a calculated bet here, because they are in a medical facility, so he's probably not in a position to do her any really serious harm physically. And I think she knows that Jefferson isn't a threat. He's a victim of a railroad job.
Yeah, well, obviously.
Largely.
But both of those things
I think she's calculating that even if Westfield had something to do with the shots being fired at her, there's not a lot he can do at this point. And he would be, if he's determined enough to try to prove that he wasn't guilty of it, he might not do anything. He probably wouldn't do anything at this point. Now, he might do something later on, but at this point in time, in this location, I think she figures she's pretty safe.
And I mean, that's, like I said, like you just said, the gamble she's making with Jefferson as well, right? Because she goes over and she sits down next to him, addressing him by his first name, introduces herself. She tells him she needs to ask him some very important questions about something that happened 10 years ago with his father. She mentions the fire and asks if he told anyone what he knew about the fire when he was in Mexico. So far, he hasn't even looked at her. Instead, he's staring out the window. She reaches over and this is a nice moment here. Because if you think about what this poor guy has been through, right? Like, he has spent the last 10 years paying for his father's crimes and being, placed in probably really hard circumstances just to keep him out of the public view and nobody believing him.
And, to begin with, he might have been upset, and it may have impacted him enough emotionally that he exhibited some signs of mental illness. But they, probably weren't genuine signs of mental illness. They were just the types of behaviors that somebody could look at and say, aha, he's mentally ill. We've got it. We've got an excuse to shut him up and tie him up and lock him up and take him away from everybody. And he was probably upset at the beginning, but ever since then, it's been a matter of keep him locked away. And of course, he's at this point, he doesn't respond to Laura initially because he figures, hey, nobody's believed me. I've given up. I didn't really do anything wrong. I was upset when I found out what my dad did. And there was nothing wrong with what I did. I tried to confront him about it. And, maybe I got a little hysterical. Maybe I went a little bit over the top with it. But that's no excuse for them to lock me up and treat me like this for the last 10 years. And frankly, I just give up. Fine, whatever. You shoot me with the drugs, whatever. I'm done fighting it because I'm not going to win. So I just, rather than resist and make it worse for me, I just give up. I'm not going to talk to anybody. I'm not going to do, that's
I like Stephanie's, and I didn't get a chance to look at the script for this one, but I like that she chose to reach out and touch him, because you have to assume that aside from being manhandled by the nurses and the staff, he probably hasn't had anybody touch him in any affectionate way. And I'm not talking about sex or anything. I'm just talking about like a hug, right? He's probably had no human contact, genuine kindness in 10 years. And to have somebody just reach out and touch him, and like it's really a beautiful moment, because he turns to her, there's tears on his face, and it's obvious that he's been looking for someone to believe him. And he recognizes that belief in her face, and the fact that she reaches out and touches him, she's not scared of him. She's speaking kindly to him. Like, that's got to be incredibly validating for him to have this.
Well, and also probably up to this point, everybody's tried to tell him, you just think that's what happened. You just think that's what you saw. You just think that's what you heard. You just think this. That's not really what happened. And Laura's approaching it from the standpoint of,
I believe
like you said, I believe you, and I want to hear what really happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, he doesn't really know her from Adam in the sense that, he doesn't know what's going on outside those walls, but he's been transferred around. So he obviously maybe has some idea that something's going on. Yeah. But it's just they didn't have to make it this touching, because he doesn't really have much of a part in the episode aside from this one scene. But they have given that enough emotional weight for it to have meaning behind it, right? We get that payoff. So that's really nice. We see Laura, we get a scene change. She enters this, I assume it's a hotel. She goes up the elevator. Steele makes his way there too, and they kind of meet in the middle. They're surprised to see one another, and it's like, well, you barely interacted in this episode, so maybe you should have touched base. He asks her what she's doing there, and she tells him, kind of snarky, wrapping up our last case. And he says that's what he's doing. And he's remarkably calm with her, considering, the daggers she's kind of lobbing in his direction. He smiles and tells her that she will be astounded by what he's learned. She says she doubts that, adding that nothing these days astounds her. So she's stonewalling him, just giving him nothing. Because he's, in his mind, the agency's license got lost, but he's been working. He's been working his ass off to try to figure it out and to try to help, right? And he tells her that, and she doesn't even give him any indication that she's grateful for that. It's just, complete nothing. And I just, poor guy, you feel bad. And don't worry guys, I'm going to have my issues with him at the end of this episode. But he looks away, then asks her how Mexico was. She counters with, how was the licensing board hearing? What did she expect him to do?
Yeah. I mean, that's just kind of insane.
Putting aside the fact that it was going to happen, even if she'd shown up, right? Pretend it's legit. What does she expect him to do? There's nothing he can do. They get to the floor they want. They both get off. When they arrive in the same room as the old white guys club, or whatever, the old rich white guys club, and we see them sitting there. She tells them they're here to present the findings from the background check on William Westfield. Mr. Earhart interrupts, saying that they're no longer accredited private investigators. Laura replies she's merely doing the job that he hired them to do when they did have their license. Not really that's not really a loophole, but okay. Yeah. It's like if your dentist loses his license, I guess, in the middle of the root.
Technically, I guess she's not wrong, because they're not investigating anything. She's just simply providing the final report.
Yeah, I know. It's just kind of if your dentist lost his license, in the middle of a root canal, and he's like, I'm just finishing the job. Yeah, I don't know. I'd be like, maybe get someone else to fill in.
Maybe not quite the same thing.
Anyway, she tells him that they will be happy to know that Mr. Westfield is as clean as the proverbial whistle. Mr. Earhart says that is good news, but Laura's not finished. She tells him that he is as dirty as they come. Earhart is furious. Steele tries to interrupt, but Laura ignores him. She tells him that after Westfield informed him that they had found Scott Jefferson in Cancun, he was the one who had him moved to Mexico City. Earhart says that's an outrageous lie, but she continues, accusing him of going to Mexico City, taking his deposition. She tells him that he's the one whose career is built on bodies. Laura adds that when she started getting close to the truth, he sent someone out to kill her. So that's where Steele jumps in, saying, "Excellent presentation. There's only one flaw in the otherwise flawless presentation." Kendall's the one who had her shot at. Kendall demands to know what he's talking about, which Laura echoes. Steele tells him that his protege, Jack Prince, wanted in on his illustrious power circle, so the two conspired together to cause Mr. Earhart's fall from grace. Kendall attempts to protest, but Steele adds that he proposed Mr. Westfield as a candidate, knowing full well that a thorough background check would eventually lead to Mr. Earhart's closet full of skeletons. Laura grabs Steele and pulls him to the side, telling him that doesn't make any sense. She was shot at to stop her. And Steele tells her the gunman was paid to miss as an added incentive to keep her on Jefferson's trail. One of the men interrupts, and Laura tells him, "Just a minute, we're caucusing." Well, it's about time.
Yeah.
Right? Laura says if that's true, why would Kendall have their license pulled? Steele admits he hasn't figured that one out yet. At least she's realized now. I'm guessing she put the pieces together just this minute, but hey, never too late, that the license being pulled was intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Better late than never, but it must be now. She must be putting those things together now because she was still kind of ticked off at him on the elevator, right? How was the licensing board? That response to him, right? So, yeah. Laura looks over at the men and deduces that it must have been Mr. Earhart who had their license pulled as a shrewd way to keep them from finding Jefferson. He asks if he has any proof of that, and Laura says she does. She pulls out a signed statement from Jefferson implicating Earhart. Now, I wonder, would this be worth much if he was declared insane legally?
That's a good question. If you could demonstrate that he wasn't actually insane.
Yeah, you'd have to get an expert witness in there to talk to him, right?
But you would have to have that, and then you would also have to dig out all the paper trails and all the connections between people to illustrate that this person did this and this person did that. This person arranged for him to be locked up this place. This person arranged for him to be moved when somebody was getting close.
Yeah,
it would be a tough sell, but it is doable. Especially if you can get him into court and have him testify, because if he's not insane, and you can get him into court and he presents as a reasonably intelligent person who has his wits about him and is the victim of a conspiracy to silence him because he knew something, he knew too much, then you can create a pretty good argument that people will buy.
So, I mean, there's obviously more that needs to be done here, but Kendall looks at Earhart smugly and says, "Tough luck, Horton." Steele pulls out his own piece of paper saying he has a signed statement from Jack Prince implicating him, to which Earhart counters with, "Tough luck, Kendall." They are the definition, these two, of frenemies. Right? This is, they're frenemies. Like, they're catty bitches. I'm sorry, but they are. And then Steele comments on politics making strange bedfellows and calls the group the most arcane Byzantine bunch he's ever seen. And Laura adds, "Don't forget Machiavellian," to which Steele claims it was purely unintentional. And for those who don't know, because Machiavelli is often referred to in a lot of these sorts of situations, Nikolai, I can't even begin to pronounce his whole full name, was a diplomat, author, philosopher, and historian who lived during the Italian Renaissance. He wrote a political treatise called The Prince in 1513, but it wasn't published until about 5 years after his death. And he's also often been called the father of modern political philosophy. I did take a political science course in which we studied Aristotle, Socrates, Machiavelli, Nietzsche. We looked at all of these different people, right? And he basically, his name has come to evoke, according to, this is Wikipedia, but This is not wrong. Unscrupulous acts of the sort he advised most famously in his work, The Prince. He concerned himself with the ways a ruler could survive in politics and knew those who flourished engaged in deception, treachery, and crime. He advised rulers to engage in evil when political necessity requires it, at one point stating that successful founders and reformers of government should be excused for killing other leaders who would oppose them. So he definitely has his own opinions on stuff. So, and there's even a Buffy quote that I'm going to attach to this because I just had to.
Had to.
There's an episode where Xander makes some sort of comment that of the sort of how, like, you know, it's necessary if we have to do it. And he says, "Am I right, Giles?" And Giles says, "There is a certain Machiavellian ingenuity to your transgression." And Xander says, "I resent that, or possibly thank you," because he doesn't know what it means. But yeah, so Laura points this out. I just noticed as well that we haven't had a movie reference in this episode.
True.
So that's kind of interesting. We get a scene switch. We're back at Steele's apartment. He's bringing Laura tea. He tells her, and he's walking really softly in this scene, which is this is a really interesting scene between them. He tells her he looked over some of her old case reports and that she used quite a bit of creativity in putting them together. Laura says that was before you were you. They're both being very careful with each other here. Right? She says she still had to keep alive the illusion there was a Remington Steele. And you can see on his face he looks nervous at where this conversation's heading. Right? He says he doesn't think they're going to have any trouble getting their license restored. Laura sets her tea down and says that not having it has given her time to think. He asks about what, and she wonders if having that piece of paper is all that's keeping them together. She wonders if they have anything else in common besides the agency. Steele looks really scared now. He jokes about his allergy to legwork and says she says it's got nothing to do with that.
And you're gone.
So close. Okay, we're almost there. Where did I lose you?
He was starting to ask about his allergy to legwork.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So he looks really scared, right? She says it has nothing to do with that. She says losing their license might be the best thing that's ever happened to them, as it will give them time to think about how they really feel towards each other outside work. This is... I have a few different thoughts about this, and I'm wondering what your take on this is, because it sounds a lot like a breakup, but at the same time, okay, they have talked about this, how their cases keep getting in the way, how they haven't had any time together, how everything they do seems to... I mean, he invented a case just to spend some time with her, right? So she's not wrong about this, but it's interesting that she's saying, I wonder if this is a good thing, because now we can think about how we feel about each other. It sounds like on the words themselves sound like she's saying, hey, we could use this time to spend it together, to see what our personal relationship is. But the tone, the way she's looking at him, the body language all says this is a breakup. And he seems to read that, right? He understands that.
Yeah, I mean, that is the piece of paper the only thing keeping us together. I mean, that's one spouse saying to the other, this is it. That's the only reason we're still here. And then, of course, Laura continues her comment by saying, well, all we've ever done is play trial and error with our personal relationship. And it's like, okay, she's looking for something that she can use it to justify this, because if she's honest with herself and she's honest with Steele, that's her fault that they've only played trial and error with their personal relationship, because she keeps changing the rules.
Well, to be fair, he keeps lying to her.
Well, okay. Yes.
Right?
But sometimes it's as a result of her continuing to change the rules.
I think they both bear the brunt of this in terms of how, they're not communicating, right? They haven't been communicating. Neither one of them is communicating their needs. Neither one of them is being honest about what they want. They're constantly dodging around each other. It's a game, it's a dance, whatever. They're constantly dancing around each other. She's danced out, right? But again, aside from that one comment about, is this the only thing keeping us together? The rest of her words, and I'm just looking at the words, right? The rest of her words sounds like she's saying, hey, maybe we should take this time where we're not working to spend it together, to find out what else there is, to find out what we have in common, to get closer. But
it almost feels like she's saying that and saying, so we need to go our separate ways to see how we feel each other.
That's my point. Like it's a really weird, like, and I think it's beautifully done because, again, if you read this on the script, you read this just as a script, you might interpret it as an actor as her saying, this could be the best thing that's ever happened to us. We can figure out what's between us. You might have, like, as an actress, she might have snuggled up to him or gotten physically closer to him. Instead, she's moving further away. Right? And you can see on his face that he understands perfectly what she's saying. The subtext is text. Right? She's saying, like, do we have nothing else? Is this all we have in common? And his face just falls. Right? And as you said, she says, all we've ever done is play trial and error. And Steele, who's trying to save the situation, says, are you saying it hasn't worked? And then she counters with, are you saying it has? He admits not consistently. Laura says, and that's a fair estimation, I think, because there have been times where they have been quite close, when they have been communicating, when they have been allowing each other in. It's just one puts the barriers up and then the other does something stupid. And let's face it, that's usually Laura putting the barriers up and Steele doing something stupid. But
but why does he do something stupid? He does it in response to the barriers. He does it in response to a decision or an action that she's taken. I'm not saying that he's excused for those things. I'm saying that she bears some responsibility for his response because she created the situation that provoked the response.
Well, I mean, I think initially the barriers were because she doesn't know his past. She doesn't know who he is. She doesn't know what he wants. She doesn't know if he's going to stick around. And those are all fair things to be wary about. As they move further in, though, and she gets more information about him, that's when the barriers should have been coming down. But at the same time, he continues to lie and to do stupid stuff. So those barriers stay up. And some of that is the
barriers, she even admitted in this, not in this episode, the last episode, Still Trying, that his attitude, his approach to things mirrors too much what she's got buried inside, and she doesn't want to let those things go. And by being with him, she's tempted to let those things out, and she isn't going to let that happen. So that's why she keeps putting up barriers. It's not about him anymore. It's all about her.
Well, I don't disagree with that. I just think that he's created some of these situations for himself too, right? Like lying to her in Can, lying to her in Blue Blooded, lying to her in, like, I think if he was being consistently honest and consistently transparent after the Can agreement, if he decided, okay, this is it, no more tricks, no more running around, no more doing any of this, just I'm going to let her know what's going on, then at this point she wouldn't have a leg to stand on. I think there's still that tiny little part of her that says, and we're going to see it. We're going to see it again. Bonds of Steel. When stuff comes up, But
I think part of it is because in the past, as he said, I've tried to come to you when I needed help, when I had a situation, and your attitude was, I don't want to hear about it. So I've got this situation that needs to be dealt with. You're historically not willing to help me with any of these things. So I'm going to go take care of them. And if questions come up, I'm going to lie to you. And again, I'm not saying that he's not responsible for his behavior and his decisions, but again, it's in large part in response to her attitudes, her behaviors, the things that she has done that have said, I'm not going to help you with these things. It doesn't matter how much of a problem you have with it, how much trouble you're in, or your motives. I'm just not going to help you. So you're on your own. And so when he says, okay, fine, I'm on my own.
But there have been times where she has, like, if you look at Steel Framed, right, where that turned out to be her past, but she thinks it's his past that has created this situation where someone's coming after him. And she is 100% there for him. It doesn't matter what that could possibly turn up. She's just saying, like, hey, I believe you. Everything looks like I shouldn't believe you, but I believe you. So there have been times when she has stretched belief even to herself. I mean, thou shalt not steal would be another good example, because that was early on where it looked like he had screwed them over. And Murphy was like, hey, how, like, come on. But I agree with you. It's inconsistent. And that's the problem. Neither one of them is communicating. Neither one of them is trusting the other person. Neither one of them is being the person that they can be all the time, or at least most of the time. And here is, I mean, Steele, at least at this point, is trying to be honest with her and trying to fix things. And she says all she's suggesting is that they take some time to think about it.
She's emotionally already left the relationship.
Yeah,
she's gone. She's only there present physically, emotionally, mentally. She's gone.
He looks devastated. He looks absolutely devastated. And it's heartbreaking. Like I feel so bad for him in the scene, and then I'm pissed off at him later. But like you can see it on his face, right?
You know, the thing is, even if he mentally says, I don't blame her, she's right, she would be better off without me. You know, the head and the heart don't always agree.
We'll get there in a minute.
And even
put a pin in that. Because first he storms into Bergman's office, and I love this scene.
Oh yeah. Right?
Grabs the guy by the neck, throws him onto the table, like rakes him across the table, then up against a wall, right? So this poor guy, speaking of soiling yourself, this poor guy's probably done that, right? He says Earhart must have awfully big pockets. He points out it won't be too difficult to prove he had their license suspended, and tells him that he's not a patient man. He doesn't want to have to sit through any hearings, petitions, or motions. Bergman looks terrified, and Steele asks him if he likes the movies, specifically Disney movies. He tells Bergman you don't have to say anything, just nod. Bergman does, and Steele says they're going to play a little scene from one of those fine family films in which he plays the good fairy who's going to grant him 3 wishes. This is maybe the closest thing we get to a movie reference.
Yeah.
Right? Cinderella or maybe Aladdin. But yeah, Steele says, 1, he wants him to confess in writing that Horton Earhart paid him to pull their license. 2, he's going to make damn sure he has that license before he leaves. And 3, he's going to allow Steele to escort him to the police station so he can turn himself in. This is Steele backed into a corner. He's scared. He's not sure of how to undo what's been done, but he's still trying to fix it. He's still trying to make it better for her, right? Like this is a really, it's a funny scene because of like how he basically just throws Bergman around like a rag doll, but it's also a really, really beautiful moment because it makes you think of in Red Holt Steele when he didn't know what to do for her, but he knew to find out who was after her. He shoving what's his face up against the tree and we've criticized Steele for his anger in season 2 or parts of season 2 where he seemed to get like overly angry at the drop of a hat for no reason. This is warranted. This is where you really you get scary, right? And he's scared. He's scared for himself, for Laura.
He's angry for Laura. He's angry for what has been done to Laura, what has been taken away from her.
Exactly.
Actually, he's not even interested in himself at this point.
No, it has nothing to do with him.
There is the collateral damage to their relationship, and he is going to suffer for that. But that's not in his mind right now. He is mad for Laura. She got screwed for nothing that she had done. And he's gonna fix it, or he's gonna do everything he can to fix it. And if he fails, it's not for lack of trying.
Exactly. Yeah, I do. I really love this scene, and I like how it's juxtaposed with. There's William Westfield on a plane again. Laura gets on the plane. She sits down next to him. He says he thought he was going to have to eat at that Chinese restaurant all by himself. Laura says, "I'm here, aren't I?" And Westfield says, "I'll drink to that." Laura takes a deep breath. She's clearly conflicted. Westfield asks if she's okay, and she says she doesn't know how to tell him this, but he was only chosen to run for senator because someone wanted her to sink Earhart's ship.
Can I just say?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm not a big fan of the large, overly done pattern on her sweater.
Oh my God! Thank you.
But I love her in the sweater and those pants.
No, here's the thing: the sweater, silhouette-wise, looks gorgeous on her, right?
Yeah.
Like this kind of sweater looks really good. But oh my God, could she have found a more hideous-looking? This is okay. So
take
theory.
the appliques off of it, and she is HOT.
Yeah, right. I've had this theory about clothing like this. Okay, like whenever you see sweaters or shirts that have like a kitty cat or like random just generic stuff, and I think to myself, who goes into a store? And I'm probably insulting some people here, so I deeply apologize if that's the case. But all I can think of is like, who
We're
goes into a
sorry. We
store?
apologize for the disregard and disrespect of our listeners. But
like
the opinions expressed in this podcast are not necessarily the opinions of all the hosts.
Exactly. All right, fine. But like, and it's the same with my, like, I have the same feeling about art on walls, like people's homes, right? When you go in and you see just like a random generic, you know, I just think to myself, who goes into a store and looks at a sweater that has like, I don't know, that picture on it and thinks, oh, I really like that. I want to put that on my body. Like, I don't know. It just feels so soulless and without personality, right? Like, it doesn't feel like it's expressing anything except, look, it's got a palm tree on it. And this could just be because all of my stuff is like nerdy, or it's either a band t-shirt, or it's got like, or it's a Buffy t-shirt, or it's a, you know, something to do with a show I like, or something to do with like a funny phrase or whatever. Like it's
What
got,
person goes into a store and buys a
I don't know. I always wonder. Well, I don't. I order it offline, but like I always wonder to myself.
You're embarrassed to go into the store and buy it.
No, they don't sell. I mean, the show is like 30 years old, but but I always wonder to myself, like, and it's not even an insult. It's more like a, what about this? I want to talk to them and find out, what about this do you like? Because to me, it doesn't, like stuff like that where it's just a random generic picture. I don't understand what the appeal is. Like, what part of your personality are you expressing? And that could just be me. There could be something that makes perfect sense. For Laura, she might have liked the colors. Well, I don't know, right?
You know, it's the kind of sweater that might appeal to a young girl. And you could make the argument that there are, you know, women in their 20s, teens, 20s, 30s that wear those because it's something they used to like when they were a kid, and it reminds them of that time. And it's just kind of a way of connecting back to a time in their life where they, you know. You
don't spend too much time with teenagers. They're not wearing that.
Not anymore. No, mine are all gone. My youngest is in her 30s. So
I'm officially on summer vacation, but I'll tell you what they wear. And it's interesting, actually, what they wear now is either like crop tops and stuff like that, but also band t-shirts from bands that I liked in the 90s. That's really cool right now. And not like as an ironic statement. They're literally listening to these things. Anyway, so moving away from Laura's sweater, I agree with how it like fits her. It fits her really well. I don't love the pattern. I think it's hideous. But yeah, she sits down to Will, and I do think it's interesting that the first thing she wants to do is break it to Westfield that he wasn't that the reason, it's kind of like Rocky, right? Not being chosen to run for senator because they think he's going to make a good senator. They've chosen him because they were hoping to use him to expose Earhart.
Yeah.
So she tells him that, and she adds that they knew checking into his background would ultimately lead to Scott Jefferson. William takes a moment to process what she's told him and then says to look on the bright side. If he hadn't, they never would have met. Laura smiles at him and tells him he really is something special. He tells her she is too. And then she stands up suddenly. Westfield asks where she's going, and she apologizes and says she can't go through with it.
She suddenly realized that she wanted Tutti Frutti, not vanilla.
Yeah, and I don't know that she ever... I don't know. I think she, in the back of her mind, I think she knew that she wasn't going to take that flight. She got on the plane, sure, but I think deep down she knew that even if she went and had Chinese food with him in Mexico, although, I mean, does LA not have Chinese restaurants? I think she knew that
the same.
At the end of the day, this was just a thing that she was using to lie to herself, right? Like, and this is maybe partly why I do like Westfield. He's not a bad guy. I know that he comes across in a certain way to you, but like at the end of the day, he is what he says he is on the tin. And it's a Wilson situation in the sense that she realizes that might have been her type before, but it's not anymore. And it's not what she wants, and she knows that it's not what she wants, right? So she stands up and she says she can't go through with it. He asks what happened. Was it me? And she says no, he's the reason she's come this far, right? Just being a decent human. She sits back down and admits that she cares very much for someone who she thinks cares very much for her. And even though they can't figure out how to make it work, she can't leave until she's sure there's no reason for her to stay, right?
That's still kind of a defeatist attitude. Yeah, I'm going to stick around long enough to get the evidence I need to give me the excuse to leave. It's kind of how that comes across.
It is, and they have a similar conversation in the season 5 Mexico episode, ironically. Well, they do go back to Mexico, so clearly Steele can get into Mexico. Anyway.
Well, at least in a year, in a year's time, you can.
Or so. But like they have a similar like talk where she says like, well, why are we still doing this? And it does feel very like, well, I'm sticking it out because I have to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love that, because if that were the case, they would have walked away, both of them, long ago. You don't stay. There's no marriage license. There's nothing that they would have to divide up, right? There's there's no children locking them into this. They can walk away at any time. So
you could argue that the agency kind of is, but it would certainly impose a much bigger problem for Laura to deal with than it would impose on Steele.
Yeah. So, I mean, but I do think that what she meant was that she still wants to find ways to make it work. She's just not sure how, right? And that's worth doing for her, so she's going to stick it out.
Yeah.
And William doesn't
I just don't
understand.
like the way she put it.
No, I don't
Because it has a negative overtone to it.
Yeah, I agree. She asks him if he understands. He admits, no, not really. But she says that's okay as long as she does. Regretfully, she kisses him, she thanks him, and she leaves. And here's the thing. I don't want anybody to think that I was rooting for her and William Westfield. I wasn't. I'm just saying I understand the appeal.
It sure sounded like it.
I understand why she walked on the plane. That's all I'm saying, okay? He's easy on the eyes, and he's a nice guy. And that, I think, in the past would have been enough for her. But it's not anymore, right? So we get a scene change. It's night. We see Steele get out of the limo. He walks up to a mailbox. In his hand, he holds the agency's license. He puts it in an envelope addressed to Laura and puts it in the mailbox. He walks back to the car, lingers there for a moment. It's a really beautiful, like, noir scene where, like, the night LA background is its own character almost, right? Because he just sort of sits there taking it in, and then he eventually gets in and tells Fred to take him home. Now, we assume that means he's going back to his apartment, and he does, I guess, to get his stuff. And then Laura gets off the elevator. We see a scene switch in at Steele's apartment. She's still carrying the bag she took on the flight. She rings the buzzer. There's no answer. Now, here's the thing. We have no indication that Steele knows anything about the fact that she was going to go out with Westfield.
No, we don't.
And I realized this when I was rewatching it, because in the conversations I have seen on the Steele Watchers Facebook group, there's always been that sort of prevailing, like, well, you know, he knew that she was going off with someone else. Of course he left, but did he?
Yeah, we don't have any indication of that. We know is that he knows that she's basically leaving him.
Yeah, that she's
doesn't know that it's for Westfield, but that he's leaving. And you're gone again. Wow, that didn't last long. Yeah.
This is going to be a nightmare for you to edit. I apologize. Yeah, all he knows is that she's put the brakes on again, and he's not sure what to do about it. So if we assume that he doesn't know about Westfield, right, then this is really quite awful, because she goes inside the apartment. She tries the door. She finds it open. Of course, it's open. She goes into the dining room, and it's funny that you mentioned the sweater earlier, because in my notes, this is where I commented on it, and I wrote, "Only Stephanie Zimbalist could make that sweater look good." Why would you buy that? So yeah,
and she does.
She does. She looks. Yeah. She goes over to his bedroom. She looks inside. He's not there. She walks over to the closets. She opens them. They're empty. I wonder why.
How did he manage to get moved out so fast?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, he never really kept a lot of personal items in there. And it looks like he mainly...
had a closet full of clothes we saw.
True. Yeah. I know. That's a good point. But I think it's for effect, right? Because if there were some clothes still in the closet, then it would be not as clear that he's not there. He's gone, right? And this is when you see that shot where she opens the closet doors, she turns and she sort of looks away from the closet against the mirror of the closet, right? She's near tears. She's holding it together barely, right? And I kind of wonder why it even occurred to her to look in the closets. She's come back to his apartment looking for him. I wonder if deep down inside she suspected.
Well, the reason she went to the closet to look in is because, she just, for whatever reason, she had the feeling that, he's not here.
He's not here.
And I mean, seriously, he's really not here.
Yeah, like she's broken off one too many times, and then she opened, and this is a beautiful, like Stephanie is so good in this scene because anybody else might have played this a little bit more over the top, a little bit more leaning into the melodrama of it, right? But she's subtle. Like you see it in her movements, how deliberate they are, how slow they are, how she's near tears, but she's not crying, right? She goes over the drawer. She begins to look. She's not frantic. It's almost very
painful. It's painful.
Yeah.
It hurts to even move.
Exactly. And then she walks over the bed. She sits down on it and she looks lost and small. Like the camera pans back and she just, and maybe that's why they put her in that sweater because she looks like a child almost.
Could
right?
be.
Like she looks childlike and small and heartbroken. And why the hell didn't he write a note? Yeah, there it is. There's where my anger is because, okay. Spoiler alert. I'm just going to.
Well, we don't. No, wait a minute. We don't know. He had that big envelope with the agency's license in it. That piece of paper that the license was printed on was a fairly small piece of paper. And he put it in this huge envelope. He didn't need to have an envelope that big. He could have had a note inside there that he sent along with it.
We know that he didn't because when we see, and I'm jumping ahead to the season 4 premiere here, but when we see in season 4, time has passed. She doesn't know where he is and she doesn't know where he's gone. And she's looking for him because he's disappeared without a trace.
But, he's disappeared without a trace. That doesn't mean he didn't tell her, okay, I understand what you were saying. You want to call it off. It's over. You want to separate. Even if it's just for a while, I'm going to give you that time. I'm going away. After I think you've had enough time, I'll get back in touch.
But that's not why he goes away. And this is what kills me because he doesn't go away to give her time to think about things. He goes away to find his identity, to bring that back to her. He goes away to give her the thing.
That's something I think that occurred after this. I think
to the writers or to him?
To him.
Because I don't think it was for him.
Within the context of this episode, the only reason he's leaving is because she said, I've already left. Why don't you go ahead and go away? And then if we decide we still want to try to work it out, then we'll get together and try to work it out. I think at this point, the finding his ancestry, his family, I think that is not even an issue at this point. I think that's something that happens between now and the season 4 premiere.
See, that's not the impression that I got because
then you're wrong.
Well, no, I think it's just a different interpretation, right? Because we don't know, and there's nothing that says one of us is right and one of us is wrong.
Right.
My interpretation of it was that she said to him, is there anything else between us beyond the agency? And granted, she didn't bring up his identity, but at the same time, she found out midway through in this season that he doesn't know who he is, that he doesn't know his name, that he's never seen his birth certificate. And that's always been one of the prevailing issues between them is that he doesn't know or that she doesn't know. And I think in his mind, because I think that scene as well in the licensing office helps solidify that. He's trying to give her what he thinks she needs. Whether or not it's actually what she needs is irrelevant. Like he gets her license back, and he thinks, what else does she want from me? What else can I give her to show her that I want to be here, that I don't want to leave, that I'm sticking around? And the only thing that he can think to give her when she said, what is there between us, is who he is. And he doesn't know that. Even he doesn't know that. And so I think that he wants to find that information so that he can come back to her and say, this is everything that I know.
And that may be his motivation for that at that point. But I don't think that at this point he's thought that far ahead. I mean, that may come as a natural consequence of this decision here and that conversation that they had. But I don't think that at this point in time that's in his head. I think at this point it's just a matter of she wants to have time to herself to sort this out. I'm going to respect that by just disappearing, and I'll check back with her in a little while. And then, oh, you know what? There is that other thing that bugs her that she's constantly nagging at me about. I'll go do that too.
I don't know. That's not how I saw it. I saw it as, I'm going to give her the thing I'm going to give her what she needs. And I can't do that if if we're constantly doing this pattern, this back and forth, this back and forth, this back and forth. Now, did he, he gets on a plane. He leaves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he takes all his stuff. It gives, either he's planning on leaving and never coming back, or he's planning on leaving with the intention of further showing her that he wants to be here. And I think just the look on his face and the realization that he loves her in Now You Steal It, I think those two things tell us that he needs to be there, and he needs her to know that he's committed to her. And the only way he knows to do that is to give her the thing that he's never had, his identity.
Yeah, I just think at this point his sole motivation is to give her space, and then it's only later that he decides, thinking back on this conversation, thinking back on their relationship, he decides that, you know what, while we're taking this time, I'm going to go do this other thing to give her that other thing that she's been after for so long. So that's just my interpretation.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I guess the reason why I think that is because, not just because of everything I just said, but also I don't think he's thinking straight. He freaked out at Bergman. He attacked Bergman. He got their license back. And I think he's working solely on that rage and that fear of, okay, I did that. Now what else can I do? I'm going to get on a plane. I'm going to go find out where I come from. I'm going to find my name. I'm going to find my birth certificate. I'm going to come back. I think his brain is sort of reeling off a list. Either way, he could have left her a note. He could have left her something. We the audience,
I contend that the fact that she doesn't know where he's at doesn't mean that he didn't leave her a note. It could just be, okay, I'm giving you your space. That's what you said you wanted. Here you go.
I think if he had left her a note, we would have seen it. They would have filmed it. They would have showed it. Because you could have done that scene. You could have had her, because here's the thing. There's nothing in that scene, aside from the fact that his closets are empty, that tells the audience he's gone for good, right? It's her performance that sells it. She sits down. She looks heartbroken. She looks small sitting on that bed. Any other writer might have thought, oh, the audience needs to know that he's gone. We should have a note on the bed here that she picks up and she reads, and then she puts her head in her hands or something like that. But there's nothing. There's just that inherent deep knowledge in her that the thing she's been terrified of happening for the 3 years since he showed up has just happened. And that's kind of, and even I don't know. It just bothers me that, because when we get the season 4 started, she's looking for him. She's trying to find him. She doesn't know where he's gone. And it seems the way they film it, the way Laura it behaves in that episode, it feels like she didn't know.
If he, at this point, had planned to go find his name, so to speak, and he thought that that's what she wanted, and that he was going to go do that and then bring it back to her, you don't think he would have left her a note saying, I got the agency back for you. Now I'm going to go find the one thing that has been such a problem between us, my name.
That's the thing. I think this is another one of those.
He would have left that as a note. He would have left her something to indicate okay, while you're doing this, I'm going to go take care of this thing and resolve this issue that's been one of the big stumbling blocks between us.
I don't think he would have said anything in case he couldn't. I don't think he would have made that promise in case he couldn't.
I didn't say he was going to promise that he was going to do it, or he didn't promise he was going to succeed. He could have said and would have said, I'm going to go do this to try and get this information.
No, I don't know that. I think if he had left her a note, it would have simply said something along the lines, like you said, I've gone off. I'm giving you some space. I'm not gone forever. I think it would have just said that. I'm not gone forever. I will be back. But I don't know that he would have told her about trying to find out his identity, simply because he's the kind of person that he doesn't believe in promises. He doesn't believe in making a guarantee that you can't back up, because nobody has ever done that for him.
But my contention is that promising to try to do something, you can fulfill that promise without succeeding at the goal.
But the
effort would have been the thing he's promising, not the result.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think the life he's lived is not what he's.
Yeah, I'm just of the mind that he didn't have that scenario in mind when he left. He was just leaving to give her the space that she
whether he did or he
indicated
didn't.
That she wanted. Anyway,
you leave a note. You say, I'm not gone forever. I'm coming back. I'm giving you your space. Whatever. You leave a note. And we see no evidence and we'll talk about it in season 4, but we see no evidence that he left her a note or told her that he was leaving or that he was coming back or that anything.
The lack of proof is not proof that it didn't happen.
Well, narratively, it kind of is, though, because if it's part of the story, you're going to put it in. If there was a note, they'd mention it, but there isn't. The writers would put that in there. So, I spent the entire episode going after Laura. This is where I get annoyed with Steele, because
you're
whether or not
just doing that in the name of fairness. That's all.
Inequality. How dare I?
Yeah, really.
but in all seriousness, though, he knows that's her deepest fear, him disappearing. He knows that,
which is why he would have left her a note.
But they don't mention it, so there isn't a note.
Fine. Maybe I'll just write
the note. Write the fanfic with the note. I don't know. Steel Watchers, please weigh in here, because I don't know. I could be these are all interpretations because we don't have this evidence. So I just wish we had seen some sort of evidence that he had communicated with her about leaving, because it puts all of her fears, all of the things she's afraid of, all of the stuff that her father leaving, Wilson leaving, right? All of that coming back full force. This is the person that she was trusting to be there, even though they've had their ups and downs, even though she's broken things off.
Which is why I contend that he left her a note, because he knows that those are her issues, and he is fighting to protect her, and he would not do that to her.
I think you're giving him more credit, because bonds of steel. You're giving him more credit than he deserves here, because he screws up royally time and time again. Doesn't mean that he doesn't care. It just means he doesn't know how to show he cares in the way that she needs to.
Okay, now that's just not fair, because that is every man.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our podcast. You're not wrong. Anyway, that brings us to the end of our episode. There's a good place to stop right there. That's every man. Okay. We don't really have any movie references unless you count that vague Disney comment.
Yeah, we're not. I'm not going to list every Disney movie ever made that includes a fairy princess in our,
That would be a weird search. So yeah, we have on the website, www.SteeleWatching.com, show notes, no links to Disney films, although you're welcome to browse Disney's canon and see what they have to offer. We also have social media resources and links such as
the official Steel Watching Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, and of course the link to the ever popular Steel Watchers fan group,
where we can debate Eric's interpretation of William Westfield, my interpretation of William Westfield, Eric's interpretation of whether or not there was a note, my interpretation of whether or not there was a note.
I don't think that's going to be a fair debate, because let's be honest, the majority of the members of the fan group are female. They're going to have probably more likely to have the interpretation that you have.
You'd be surprised. A lot of the time people side with you. I don't always get sided with. Just saying. Anyway, however, that was our season finale, and I think that was the first time we actually got a finale that felt like a finale. So
yeah, kind of, yeah.
In that respect, I applaud them on the swing, because you can't. I mean, the swing, like the attempt, right? Not the swing, as in the. Because you can't.
Yeah, clarify that. Remember, you had family members that worked at one of those stores.
Yeah, there was a swing. Yeah, you can't keep doing this elevator ride. I'm gonna wrap this up before we really get started. You can't keep doing this elevator ride without putting something big in. Yeah. So this is the floor, right? This is where they're at. When I like the ambiguity of it. I just wish there was a note. Anyway, our next episode.
I am going to have something a little bit stronger than water or soda
He's
to get
me
through
scotch.
this.
Scotchy. Our next episode is the top 5 episodes of season 3.
I don't like
Stay tuned to watch Eric squirm.
Beer or wine, maybe, yeah.
To hear all of your picks read out as well.
Yes. So.
Thanks for bearing with us if anybody was watching and had to endure me getting knocked out of this time and time again. Thank you for sticking with us. And I do apologize for the editing job you're going to have with this, because it's going to be a nightmare. But that's all for us, unless you've got anything else to add.
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Hey, everybody. Eric and Sara here. Just a quick announcement to let you know that yes, we do appreciate everyone who listens, participates, and supports the podcast in whatever way you do. But we wanted to give an extra thank you to those who are so graciously giving to be monthly financial supporters.
We are making live streams of our recording sessions available to anyone who is a monthly financial supporter. So not only can you watch us live as we record our podcast episodes, you will be getting access to the raw, behind-the-scenes, unedited version of episodes before they get officially released.
And Sara, does that include our mistakes and screw-ups and our humiliating?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Every
it does.
single one of them.
Every single one of them, yes. So again, this is just an extra thank you to those who are going above and beyond. But whether you choose to become a monthly financial supporter or not, we still love you. We want to say we thank you for your support, your encouragement, and your feedback.
If you want to become a monthly financial supporter, please visit our website at www.steelewatching.com to sign up.